Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the March 23rd meeting of the Foxborough School Committee. Thank you for tuning in and attending our meeting tonight, albeit remotely. And welcome to all of our school committee members here in person at the Town Hall meeting room. It's just great to be here and see us all together and with our school department as well. Certainly thank you to the Town Hall and Mike Johns and all the people that have helped arrange and communicate with us to have our meetings in person. So thank you so much. First on the agenda is our open public comment, and again, as we have done for many weeks now, just to announce that there's been two submissions by the same person to our community inbox, which has been forwarded to all school committee members, Megan Nelson of 31 Mechanic Street. So thank you for sending that in to our attention. Next on the agenda quickly is our teaching and learning highlight. Dr. Bertos.
It is my pleasure to introduce this teaching and learning highlight this evening. We have Ms. Shawn Trice, who is one of our fabulous Foxborough High School art teachers, and she's there with her students. I'll have her introduce them in just a second. But the teaching and learning highlight this evening is going to highlight some beautiful artwork that is taking place inside the high school on walls. And this is from her pre-AP class and also from her Fine Arts 2 course. So she has a PowerPoint that has some awesome pictures in it with a video along with that as well. And she'll be able to tell you all about the project and what's taking place at the high school. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Trice.
To the board for the recognition. We are so honored to be here. Firstly, I just want to say at the beginning of this year, we weren't sure if we were going to be able to do large scale work, if we were going to be able to do group work or even painting. But with the help of our administration, who completely embraced this project, we were just so over the moon to be able to do something like this for our students and for our school long term. It's been a personal goal of mine to make the school more colorful and more joyful every single year. I don't know if you've taken a walk down the art hallway at the high school yet. But we have tape murals all over the walls, and we have ceiling tile murals up going down the hallway and in our classrooms. And that's been spreading throughout the school, just adding more color throughout the school, which is really exciting. Now this year, we definitely did not think that we would be able to do anything, like I said, with group work, but this has been one of the things that's been easier with COVID. Just having less students in the school has been one of the reasons why we were able to complete this project. Less hallway traffic is one of the reasons why we even proposed it this year. Doing a large scale project is always really intimidating, but it is 100% because of this incredible group of students that I have in these two classes that I even considered it this year. They've been so responsible, so flexible, so talented, and very ready for this challenge. And with that, I'm going to share my screen and introduce you to Elizabeth Prevost, Riley Higgins, and Morgan Osborne. I'm going to go through my screen and see, oops, hold on one second, and show you, like Dr. Bretos said, the PowerPoint that I have. Okay. Oh my. Now if I can only move it over. There we go. Sorry.
You're fine.
Uh-oh. Just take it.
Did we lose him? See your cursor. Come on.
Sorry about that.
There we go. Oh.
Shawn, you want me to try sharing it and see if that comes up?
Yeah, maybe. It's just not letting me right now. I don't know if it's my Wi-Fi or what.
Huge file too.
Thank you.
I was
Ah,
on
perfect.
every Zoom call today.
You are?
Every single call. I could not get it to work.
All right, so these are just some examples of our students working, of the sketching and brainstorming process. We used Pinterest, we used YouTube videos to really get them to start to understand what the mural process was like. And these three designs, the top one was done by Tenley Stonis. The middle one, these hands, this was designed by Riley Higgins. And this was drawn and influenced by Pinterest, but it was drawn by Molly Fitzpatrick. And you can see them working on it there. It's a slow process, but I think every day to see a little bit of progress is really exciting. So if you have any questions for the students, they're here to answer them for you.
I love that. Yeah,
That's great.
Sean, just let me know if I need to go faster or go forwards or backwards with the pictures too.
Okay.
Those are beautiful.
Like I said, these are still in progress, so we haven't finished them quite yet.
Sure. That's great.
Elizabeth, do you want to talk about yours?
Please.
Sure. So, Tenley and I came up with the idea of doing sort of abstract figures, and our original plan was to do one large mural with people doing all sorts of different activities that you would find in the school. And after talking to administration, they really loved our idea, but they thought it would be more beneficial to put the corresponding people with the wings of the school. So it's a little easier for students who are not so familiar in the school to make sure like they're in the right spot and to kind of just make it so you know where you are in school. Tenley and I we wanted it to be abstract because we liked the idea of having all sorts of different people that we could show in a simple sort of form. And Tenley helped draw because drawing is not my strong suit. It is very much hers. So I kind of told her what I wanted to draw and we collaborated on what we actually ended up drawing.
Thank you. If we don't mind switching back to the hands, sorry, that's Riley's design. And Riley, do you have anything that you want to say?
Yeah, so the hands was actually our second idea for our mural. At first we were going to do more of like a nature design, and then my partners decided that we were going to go for something more geometric. And I immediately went to hands for that, so I got right onto my digital tablet, started sketching out, and it came out actually very, very well. And it's huge, but I'm very excited with how it's coming out.
Yeah, we were saying, especially in the beginning of when you walk into the school, it's a sign of welcoming and what we want our students to feel right when they walk in school.
Excellent. Riley, did you find a challenge in making the hands so large? So taking artwork from actual size to extremely large? Did you find a challenge in that? Was that a new skill?
Oh, yeah. Yes, of course. That was definitely very intimidating at first because we weren't planning on having that location there. So we weren't planning on having it be that big. And then when they told us that they wanted it to be right in the front of the school, we noticed like, oh, this is a big wall. We have to kind of graph through the original picture and figure out the proportions there. But I was nervous, but I think it came out pretty good.
Oh, yeah,
It's great.
I'd say so.
Fabulous.
Thank you.
So much.
I could see that. I watched the Fox 25 clip on the news, and I could see that mural in the background. And I was wondering, I was like, wow, that's really cool. When did that go up? So I'm so excited that this is the teaching and learning highlight. It's just fabulous, Riley.
Thank you so much.
This is the mural that Morgan and her fellow painters are working on. Morgan, do you want to say anything? Not to put you on the spot.
Yeah, so for my group, we wanted like something inspiring, so we found this quote, and then I like the movie Up, and that was my idea to put the Up house, and like that's like in the movie Up. I don't know if you've seen it, but like it's almost about like following your dreams, and so it's like inspiring, and it will hopefully like when kids see it in the halls or like be inspired to do what they want to do and not have anyone stop them. So yeah.
And it's right near guidance too, which is so appropriate.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, we're really nice. I love that movie, right? Isn't that a great movie? What a classic. I just love that movie. What a great connection.
And then this is a video, a time lapse that Elizabeth and Tenley made, and I would love to share it with you. It's really cool to see their process. I don't know if you have volume there, but it's comes with music.
Oh, that's great.
She's playing the music.
yeah. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Might be pretty bad.
Nice. That's great.
Apologies for the feedback there. The only way to play the music this way was to have it here and the microphone at the same time.
That's great.
I know Elizabeth is one of our music students, so I know she put a lot of work into probably picking that piece.
Exactly.
That was great.
Back to them.
I know we have Mrs. Myers-Pacla on there as well, if she had anything she wanted to add.
No, just, well, yes, I say no, but yes, of course. I was just so excited to hear about this project. And when Ms. Trice had asked if we would come down and take a look at the proposed project, so it was great to have that opportunity to collaborate with our art students and to really ask them about, what it was, what their proposals were, what it was that they were looking to do and how to do, and then talking it through with them. And, the one suggestion about how about if aspects of this go into the different wings of the building. And we were very excited about the hands actually being that welcoming part into the building. Because it does stand for everything that's so important. So we really did appreciate all that that these students have done and that Ms. Trice has offered and the whole art department has offered. And what not a better way to give something back to the school than to have something that's going to be lasting and up on our walls for quite some time. So again, thank you to all of you. We so look forward to that progress every day and to watch and the amount of work and time that has gone into this, not only the preliminary work, but the work that we're seeing on a daily basis. So again, thank you, ladies.
Rob, go ahead.
Yeah, I just, so thank you all. I think it's beautiful. And I think it's really a testament to the community at the high school that this is going to be something, as Ms. Myers-Pacla said, that outlasts your high school career. What do you think about that? That, 10 years you're coming back and that artwork could still be there, and you've left that impression on all the people that walk through those halls, and I hope you're proud of that, because that's an amazing thing to leave as a footprint for yourself. So is that something that you thought about when you were coming up with the artwork? It's just in general. I don't. Yeah. It's.
Yeah. Personally, yeah, that was like a huge factor in deciding what we were gonna do and put up on the wall, because I knew it would like outlive my high school career. So I know I really wanted the message to be able to, outlive COVID and outlive, whatever we're doing right now. And that was also a really intimidating factor of the whole portrait thing, because, you never knew who's gonna look at this in like 3 or 4 years. So
Right.
yeah, that definitely had a huge play in it.
Thank you. And then my other question was, are you able to walk by your artwork and appreciate what is so beautiful about it and not pick out the things that you wish you were doing differently? Because that's the hardest thing for anybody when they put so much of themselves into it. We pick out the things that we would do differently next time versus just appreciating the beauty of what is there.
I mean, I know for Tenley and I personally, after staring at our mural for so long, there was a point where we were sick of it and we just wanted to be done looking at it. But once we got the finished product and we took a day or two to not look at it and we went back to it, we were actually really proud of how it turned out. And I mean, even just seeing the rest of the students with their work, I'm just so proud of what they're doing too, because it really is just so cool and so fun that we've been able to do this in the school.
Great.
That's great.
Thank you.
What departments, it looks like you have science and art covered, right? You're identifying departments. Are those the only two right now, or are there some other ones? Or are in the works, maybe?
So far, we've only done science and art, but today, Tenley and I were able to start one in the English wing, and our idea changed a little bit from our original idea. Originally, we were just going to do a figure and a whiteboard, but with the help of Ms. Trice, we came up with the idea of doing sort of like a Scrabble board and a person placing a Scrabble piece on the Scrabble board, and all the words in the Scrabble board are English-related words like metaphor, speech, story. And so we talked to Dr. Waz about that, and she really liked what we were doing.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
That's really cool.
Good.
I like that.
Anyone else?
I think this is wonderful, and I think for parents who haven't been in the building in over a year, when they finally do get an opportunity to go back into the building, are going to be so excited to see your artwork and just so appreciative of it, especially the visual cues for the different areas of the building when you get lost on open house and during parent-teacher conferences. That'll be helpful, but everything, all of your artwork is just fantastic, and it's going to be such a gift to the community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Have you seen your fellow students having reactions as it's evolved, and what has that felt like when you've seen other students appreciating your artwork?
For my group, it's been a lot of like teachers and staff walking by as we're painting, and they're all like, "I love seeing the process, and it's coming along so well." And it's very, very nice, like the things that people say when they're walking by while you're working. So that's always a huge plus side to working while other students are in school.
Mm-hmm.
They get to kind of watch the piece come together.
Mm-hmm.
And yours is in the math hallway too, Riley. So even seeing like the angles, and it's right near the front office, but it's down that math hallway. So a lot of the math teachers are like, "Yes, I see angles, I see geometry."
I was trying
That's
to
true.
say that.
Yeah.
I could see like really nice prisms and cool. There's a lot of cool three-dimensional stuff in there too, but they're all beautiful. I love them all.
Well, ultimately, isn't that the beauty of art, is that someone sees angles, someone sees two hands, someone sees two colors, right? So the whole beauty of, ultimately, the beauty of that kind of, I don't want to say abstraction, but that kind of approach is that it's to each his own. And and the next day can be different than the previous, right? So thanks so much for making that effort. Thanks for bringing your artistic ability to everyone else in the school. That's so important for us to share our gifts every day in school. So thank you. And Ms. Trice, thanks for your motivation and your hard work as well. Thank you.
Great job. Thank you.
You.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye, everyone. Thanks. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome to stay.
Yeah, you're welcome to stay.
Everyone laughed. Of course you should stay.
Next.
Stay.
That's true. It's true. Next on the agenda is our superintendent's update.
So I actually just have 3 quick updates this evening. The first one is, as part of our preparing and getting everyone back full in person into school, we started having our virtual town hall meetings. We had our first one with elementary parents on the 18th of March, and that is already, we recorded it and it's posted on the district webpage as well as each of the elementary school web pages. So if they weren't able to join it or they wanted to go back and rewatch it, it's there to access. The middle school virtual town hall will be held on Wednesday, March 31st, and the high school on Wednesday, April 14th. So those are geared specifically to what the plans at each of the school, what has changed, what won't change, and then also really any important notes that need to be made with having all students back in place. If we're not able to answer all of the questions that are presented that night, we download the chat function, so we'll be able to come back to parents on those. So those are upcoming for middle school and high school. At the last school committee meeting, I mentioned that we were waiting guidance from the Department of Education on graduation, and whatever that guidance would dictate what graduation would look like. On late Friday afternoon, we received that guidance. It actually came through the Department of Ed, but through DPH. And as you can imagine, it's going to be very much to meet all of the COVID-19, standards, safety standards. So the high school, they're in planning. They've been working in conversations with their class officers, class advisors. Just as some examples, I think that might be helpful for people to understand as far as some highlights. We will have the graduation outdoors, like mentioned at the last meeting. But even with it being outdoors, we still have to follow strict guidelines such as 6-foot distancing, separating groups, following capacity limits, looking at our facilities, and also keeping graduation as brief as possible is another recommendation or requirement. As far as attendance, it's faculty, it's staff, it's administrators, it's our students and their families, obviously. But there's a lot of planning that goes into it. Registering ahead of time, who's going to be there, staggering entrance and exit so you do not have congregation that's taking place. Face mask, obviously, being required by all. And then things such as our commencement programs, not like last year we mailed those out to students. We'll be doing the same this year because we're not able to have, paper copies. They suggested doing digital copies, but we know it's really important for our graduates to have that program. So we'll mail it out to them just as we did last year. So at this point, a lot of planning that's taking place right now. If there's any additional guidance that comes out, we had a call with the commissioner today, and there could be, additional guidance that comes out. As an example, one of the questions was, if we can be 3 feet in a classroom with graduates, why does it need to be 6 feet outside? So that was a conversation that we had on the commissioner call today. So we expect to see other guidance coming out, but really the point is lots of planning going on, and as we have information and get closer to graduation, then that will be communicated. Other guidance that came out yesterday was on athletics, and specifically on spectators was some of the information I know that people were really interested in hearing. And the Hockomock athletic directors, they all met today, and they put out a statement. I'll actually read that because I think it would be helpful. So currently, our spectators policy has been only those of our athletes and no road fans. And so what the Hockomock League has agreed to for road fans, which is different, is that 2 away family members of senior athletes, varsity players, would be able to attend those road games, meaning off-site. And that policy would be including cheerleading, football, volleyball, track and field, and unified basketball. So going forward, the athletic directors will continue to monitor any information, as it's made available by the EEA and by DESE, and again, with our local Board of Health. I know Joe Cusack, he met with our Board of Health this afternoon, even after the athletic director's call. Because even though the capacity for outside might be opened, we have to think about the capacity within our athletic facility, which when we think about the turf field, the bleachers, and inside the fencing. So QR codes, checking in when you come in, because we have to make sure that we have all of the distancing that takes place inside the facility. And then the other piece to add to that is we have started, volleyball's every Wednesday, so that's been taking place. We've had our track meets that both have gone really well. The first home game for football for varsity is this Friday night at 5:30, so that will be taking place on Friday. We have another home game that will be against North Attleboro on April the 9th, but other than that, they are away games. And the other piece that's important, which is earlier than usual, is spring signups started today through Family ID. We started it earlier this year because we didn't get to have the spring season last year, so there's so many student athletes that we might not know about. So we've started the sign up earlier than we normally would. So that's it for my updates. Any questions?
Rob?
Will you, for the athletics, will they revisit that policy again for the start of the spring season?
Yes. They actually are revisiting it constantly, and then EEA, when that comes out with any other additional. And I don't know if I could ask you to put your MIA hat on for a moment, because if there's anything else to add that might be helpful.
I think that was an accurate presentation of the change that just came in place yesterday. I think the EEA is looking at maybe another possible meeting as early as April 1st for considerations going forward. All the spring sports have been approved except for wrestling. Wrestling is approved at level 1 right now, but the EEA is considering it, looking at data from football and considering wrestling right now. So we will hear more about wrestling as a spring sport after April 1st. I think that's the best I have. But right now, that's the spectators was the big change. Locker rooms changed a little bit, but most people are still controlling their locker rooms in the wisest fashion, or not opening them. Right. And travel, out-of-state travel, but out-of-state travel was with the governor. So.
Right. And then I had one more question, I'm sorry, and then I'll yield, I guess. I know at last meeting we had talked about they had just made some changes around music and choral. Any additional changes on that front with music or any of the?
No, there have not been any additional ones. And, that is one of we know they have to be 10 feet in distance when we're inside. So the weather, like what we had today and yesterday, this is fantastic, particularly as we start to have students all come back full in person, because if you think that you're doubling now your course and your ensembles, and so being outside is going to be really important for us, because they've not changed that at this point.
Okay. But with the beautiful weather, and I'm sure everyone's happy for that. So
right, and then we'll have the 2 tents that are going to be re-erected from what we had back in the fall.
Okay. Thank you.
Just also follow up from previous meeting. Sorry. Do you anticipate any rethinking or new announcements coming out regarding MCAS and end of year testing?
So as of right now, they have not announced the dates for middle school or high school. There's been some conversation. Is it still a possibility that it could be pushed off to the fall? The commissioner said today that yes, that is a possibility, but we need to go ahead and plan for it to be taking place this spring.
Okay. Thank you.
Just to follow up on that, and that has a lot not just to do with the state, but also the federal, correct?
Correct. So they're not allowing any waivers at the federal level, so the state couldn't even put in any waivers for that.
Okay.
Right.
That.
So we're waiting for the federal to.
That speaks
And
volumes.
actually, they sent an update today, Brent, but there was nothing about the dates or the.
Yeah.
rates. It was a nice long update, but it didn't have anything.
Nice to know what the silences are.
Anything else from anyone?
Actually, I do have one other question, and I don't know if you can say we can't talk about that here, but are we able to track what percentage of faculty and staff have been able to take advantage of vaccinations?
We do track that,
Okay.
and I can tell you it's been great news that so many of them have got their appointment or have already had their first shot. And so many people are helping each other
Yeah.
and getting appointments. And, you know, I've heard the advantages of having, you know, newborns at home and you're up in the middle of the night and you're able to get an appointment slot at that time because you happen to be up.
Yep.
So we've constantly been checking with everyone in all of our buildings and trying to help as much as we can. And with our bus drivers, extended day, food service, all faculty and staff, it's looking really good for people who've had at least their first shot or are scheduled to have that.
Good deal.
Thank you.
That is
Thank
great
you.
news. I had that question, but I wasn't sure. I'm glad you asked it.
Anyone else?
Just with regard to graduation, I hope that people have faith, particularly with the attention to detail that the administration showed to last year's graduation, which was exceptionally challenging and, you know, really hard on everybody. I think being challenging, I guess is the right word for it. It was so different than anything anyone had ever done. And I think last year, parents were very pleased with everything was so well thought out. And I know that this is a challenge, but you're at least going to have an in-person graduation, a more traditional graduation. I'm sure that the administration can handle every single detail that is being thrown your way based on how well executed last year's graduation was under a really extreme set of circumstances. So I know it's not going to be easy, but I know it's going to be beautiful. And hopefully people will be patient as the details come out, you know, in the next few weeks and months. So, but I know you can do it.
It'll still look very different than what we've had in years past.
We'll have to.
Well, I was going to mention the same thing about graduation, but Dr. Burtis, I wanted to thank you for reporting out to us, the school committee, and the community immediately on graduation. So I'd like to echo that and reassure parents that as soon as we received the information in the town here, we began planning earnestly, and you probably were planning before that, to be completely frank, right? But great to get the information from the state and the release and some kind of movement, right?
Yes.
And then we can report out. So I think it's important for everyone to take away that the high school is very attentive to graduation and the importance of graduation for our students and our families. So that's all we can do is be attentive. But then I would piggyback on that and saying with sports and with graduation and everything we do, as I've said before, we must keep our eye on the ball every day and be diligent, in which we've done a very good job together, I think, as a community and schools. But each of our moments and each of our days seems to impact the next in the way I see it. And so I think that's so important because the last thing we want is, you know, collapsing of anything going forward and then collapsing in outbreaks that collapse graduation or something in 2 or 3 months. And it's not scare tactic, but it's reality. It's where we are.
Well, it's a fact. That's such a great point, Richard. I think we've seen other communities this past week where they've had to dial back their plans to start in-person schooling for all their students because of out-of-school activities that have compromised their plans with COVID outbreaks. So you're right. Everyone does need to keep their eye on the ball, you know, both within the schools and within our community, and everyone needs to do their job, so.
We're trying together.
Right.
The administration
Exactly.
is trying very hard, so let's keep trying and working together.
That's right.
And I'll just say, as far as reality, the reality is there is a lot of logistical planning at all levels. But when you're planning graduation, that still needs to look differently. When you're planning for full in-person return and students still have to be at a strict 6-foot distancing for lunch. So you're looking at doubling the number of locations that you have in the middle school and in the high school. There, at the elementaries too, actually, at all levels. There's just so much. It's a busy time of year, throw MCAS and trying to schedule and plan for that at the same time. So there's a lot of logistical planning, but the most important part is our students, and to see the excitement and to hear the excitement from them about coming back full in person. It sure makes all the planning worth it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Oh, good. Thank you very much. Great update. Thanks for all the details and all the information. Next on our agenda, please, we'd like to welcome visiting with us tonight. Tonight is our Special Education Director, Corey Michalazek. It's going to get it right. Thanks for being here and spending time with us, and we're glad you're here, even though it's been a little bit of a crazy year to do all your work. You're here, so let's go.
You're to the minute, too. This is very impressive.
And before he gets started, I know he'll introduce, we've got a number of people joining him, but I just wanted to do a reminder as far as the school committee and our district goals that we work on in the summertime, that second goal, student success, that's where this goal comes in. And just to read that, monitor and assess effective inclusion and co-teaching practices that promote special education achievement goals. So that is part of this goal when we think about this annual update as well. So you'll hear a lot this evening, but I just thought it was important to, as a reminder, that is one of our district goals that you're very much a part of crafting.
Mm-hmm.
You think you would have done this enough that you can do
Welcome everyone to our meeting. I can see, well, I could see your faces a second ago, but we'll get the PowerPoint up here in a minute. And thank you all for being with us tonight and supporting this presentation. And Kiara, I saw you there as well, so welcome.
Welcome, Chair.
Thank you for having me tonight. So, we have a number of staff here. I can't see them on the screen, but the way the presentation is broken down tonight is in 3 different areas. One is we're going to really highlight the staff and the work and the accomplishments that they've had this year. This is probably the hardest years in public education, but when it comes to our students with disabilities, it's even to the extreme level. And so part of the presentation is kind of really highlighting their work, their accomplishments, and so they're here tonight, and they've been really the leaders in our work this year during hybrid learning. And I want to give you an update as far as what we've been able to do during hybrid learning in that time. And then, of course, next steps and kind of what we're working on behind the scenes outside of COVID. So that's kind of how it's broken up tonight, okay? So we're going to do some introductions. I don't know if you can see them yet. So, Ms. Bartolini.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Pam Bartolini, the speech pathologist over at IGO Elementary School.
Hi, I'm Missy Felper, and I'm one of the 7th grade special ed teachers at the Ahern Middle School.
Hi, I'm Foxborough. I'm the elementary team chair.
Hi, I'm Diana Parham, the pre-K coordinator at the Borough Elementary.
Hi, I'm Lisa Lancaster. I'm one of the special education teachers at Taylor School.
Hi, I'm Pamela Anderson. I am the high school department chair.
Hi, I'm Colleen Mckeon, and I'm one of the PAVE teachers over at the IGO Elementary.
Hi, I'm Erica Mcnamara, and I'm a special educator at the Ahern Middle School with the LINK program.
My name is Thomas Davis. I am a special education teacher in the team program at the high school.
I believe that's it. So, why I have my colleagues here tonight is because they were truly the leaders in this remote learning, hybrid learning, and full in person for some of our special education students. And so I asked them to be here tonight so you can hear directly from them in the work they've been able to do this year and their accomplishments and the challenges that they also have had. So we'll start with the elementary level. So Ms. Bartolini, if you want to start us off.
I would be happy to start us off unless, Rose, did you want to jump in with anything as an overview first?
Sure, I can do that. I really want to start off by saying that despite this crazy year that we've had, we have been pleasantly surprised to see that the majority of our students are continuing to make the progress towards their IEP goals. They are continuing to make progress in the general education curriculum. And we're seeing this through their progress reports. We're seeing this through the meetings that we're having with parents and with staff. And we're happy to see that despite the different kind of learning they've had to do this year, they're continuing to make that progress. A large part of the focus that we've had this year at the beginning of the year was really looking at the 4 different cohorts that we had to look at. We had the A and the B were here half day, and then also that C and D. We spent a lot of time at the beginning of the year really identifying those cohort C students. Those are primarily the students that were in specialized programs, and the directive from the state was to have those children in person as much as possible. We were lucky in Foxborough to bring in even more students than those children in the specialized programs. So we really had to look at a variety of different factors, L status, family situations, and other areas of concern that we had for those students, so we could bring back as many students as we could to receive as much in-person services as possible. We also needed to look at those cohort D students, those students that had chosen to be fully remote, and how we could continue to provide those services for them, despite the fact that they were not going to be in person with us at all. We also had to look at those cohort D students that are part of our specialized programs and really program for them throughout their whole day. Most of our students that were fully remote were part of a learning management system, but those students in specialized programs, that wasn't the appropriate setting for them, so we had to look at programming for them throughout the whole day, and you'll hear from some of my other colleagues about that a little bit. But we were able to do it, and it has worked out really well for all of those students as well as the service providers. I know that Corey will talk a little bit later about the ISLPs and what that meant for those students within those different cohorts, explaining how their special during the hybrid learning model and what that would look like for them as it developed throughout the year, and constantly being in contact with parents, updating them, letting them know what that was going to look like for them and how their services were going to be provided. And of course, we continue to have all of the team meetings. They needed to look a little bit different this year, obviously having them virtually as opposed to in person. And while those team meetings needed to continue to happen, and we really miss sitting in person with our families and being able to walk through this process with them, we also realized that there were some benefits to this model of having those team meetings. We were able to, it really, quite honestly, was more efficient in a lot of ways for us, and we're seeing that it's allowing our staff to spend more time with the students, less time pulled away because of travel, having to move between buildings, and all of that. And I also have heard from many parents that it's been easier for them to attend the team meetings. We've had many meetings where both parents are now able to attend because they can Zoom in from work, they can Zoom in from, on the road, on their way to and from work. There isn't the need to take a half day of work to come in for a team meeting. There isn't the need for childcare. So sort of a silver lining to this process has been being able to be more accessible for a lot of our parents for that team meeting process. So I know that I is going to jump in and talk a little bit more specifically about what they were able to do this year for our students. But again, it's been a challenging year, but I think we've learned a lot, and there's a lot of things that we'll be able to take and apply in the future as well. So Pam, maybe I'll turn it back over to you now so you can speak a little more specifically to your piece.
Absolutely. Thank you for that great overview of what the year has kind of looked like. So I'm a speech pathologist, as I said, and in that role as a related service provider, I had to support students across all 4 cohorts at the elementary level. So at the beginning of the year, thinking back to coming in, we had so many meetings and collaborations to really carefully plan amongst all the service providers, the special education teachers, the general education teachers, for what are the student services going to look like? How are we going to meet their needs, whether they're remote, whether they're in person, whether they're doing both, whether they're only doing one. So we had a lot of creativity, and kind of in that creativity, a lot grew out of that in terms of finding, different perspectives on the work that we do with the students and different methodologies, and how can we incorporate more of their skills, get kind of bigger bang for our buck in terms of helping them to make the progress that we wanted to see. So I remember throughout this year, we've been doing speech on scooters. I've been doing speech in the teacher's room, in hallways. We get up to my classroom, and the first thing I say to the kids is, okay, find a spot on a dot, because I have dots all over the floor, 6 feet apart, so that way they can all find a spot to sit down and then engage in whatever material that we have that day. The kids who are participating in our learning lab, which is the afternoon for students who are full day, they would come to the learning lab in the library to access remote specials and access a lot of their services. So they had a lot of transitions, back and forth between environments, but then they did have some more seated work as well when they were logging on and doing the computer. So I would try to involve some gross motor activities into our speech sessions in the afternoon, for, in particular for those students, because I knew that they needed to get up and moving. And thinking back to the learning lab, and the first day where we were kind of all trying to figure out, it was all hands on deck in the library, trying to figure out who needs help getting on, who doesn't know their password, just getting all the basics. And just the growth that those students made, even as their own little community and their own little classroom community. And in fact, they really bonded, and the fourth graders became really strong mentors and role models to the younger students. Back on Halloween, I helped out with a learning lab activity where they were having to guess different items in jars, and I of course threw in some language, because that's the great thing about communication, is that you can do it in any activity. So it was a lot of fun, and the kids really enjoyed it. And there were other activities like that throughout the year. That was something kind of special that we wouldn't have gotten to do otherwise. So finding that silver lining was great. In remote speech, I challenged myself to try to find new technologies to support students and try to keep them engaged in this new platform. Sometimes kind of felt like you were on stage, like really having to act to get them to see if they're with me, if they are enjoying it, if they're learning from it. But it was a lot of fun, and they grew as well, and using the different features in Teams with reactions and things like that. So even to see them accessing communication through their technology, again, that is communication. And looking towards the future, as Rose said, these kind of web-based meetings are probably going to be something that our students will be having a lot of as adults. So it's cool that they got to experience that now. Also looking at some of our most complex students and their communication needs, and being able to support their use of augmentative and assistive communication was wonderful. And just today, we had a really exciting moment in a co-treat that the occupational therapist and I were leading, where two students who utilized communication devices were engaged in this caterpillar activity with marbles, and they were independently saying that they wanted it to stop, that they wanted it to go. And they were having so much fun. They were dancing to the caterpillar music, and the occupational therapist and I were just, it was like that moment that we needed today to just fill our buckets and bring us that light of, this is why we do everything that we do each day. And, just to kind of circle back, like I said, it was really scary going into this year. What's it going to be like? But it's been amazing to see what, as a staff, we have been able to do and be capable of, and even more so, how resilient our students are, and how much we were able to learn from them, just as they were able to learn from us. And I think that's a real positive that I know I'm going to hold on to from this school year. That was unlike any other. Colleen, would you like to share some of your experiences?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Colleen Mckeon again. So I felt very fortunate because I was able to start actually in July during the extended school year with a group of my students. And during that time, I got to see them 4 days a week for a half a day. And really, that just set the groundwork for a successful start in September. I felt like we were able to work on mask wearing for students who may not have typically tolerated it. And we were able to really get them used to having that distance between each other that they might not normally have in a school year. And it was really, it's something that's very rewarding because I was able to communicate with the family, and they were able to go on an outing because these kids were generalizing wearing their masks. So that was just something really cool. And then in September, we came back with my classroom, and all of my students qualified for a full day of school, 5 days a week. And we jumped right in with all the other students. And within this group, some families opted for a fully remote day. And what that consisted of was me filling their full day with instruction. That could be some synchronous instruction where I saw them live, or some asynchronous opportunities where I was able to send home some materials, and also students were able to access online platforms like Lexia and Vizzle were really instrumental for this year. And that balance, it was definitely really tricky, but I feel like as the year went on, it became a little bit more natural, where I had groups where I might have some students in person and students who were online simultaneously. And also I was able to do some with small groups online as well as individual sessions online to meet their needs, which was really, really cool. One thing that I worked hard on was just incorporating a lot of that social communication for them as well. I did a daily morning meeting where all of my students who were in person as well as the students who were online were able to get together. And during that time, we really just established a community in our classroom. And it was great because, again, the students who were home were able to be a part of that community. And it just created a lot of respect for students with various needs within my classroom. And they all really just have a mutual understanding that everyone gets what they need. Some kids might need a sensory tool that's a little different than what you need. Someone might need a different learning tool than you. And that has just been really great to build that respect with them and being able to have everyone feel like they're part of a community, even though we might be a little bit further apart than we normally would be. I also just felt like it was great because I had an awesome team of educational assistants. I had some that returned from previous years and also just a group of new ones that were just so willing to listen and do some training with me and learn just a lot of those critical educational methods that they need to use with these students. And they're very specific, and they just were amazing and ran with it. So that was just really exciting. And I just feel like I got to work very closely with Pam and with our occupational therapists and as well as the classroom teachers to really just create a good model where I could incorporate all their needs in a holistic way and just really give them that multisensory approach and just give them that repeated, consistent practice for all the learning strategies that they need. And then the other component was just that scheduling with those online kids, but also the students who were in person. They had that chance to really become a part of their community within their grade level classroom and then be with me for another part of their day so they could get that really specific instruction. And I thought that was really important for them as well, to be a part of their school community as well as part of our classroom community. And each student had a different level of integration that just met their unique learning profile and their own needs. So I think that it just gave us, even though it was a crazy, crazy year, and I've learned so much about teams, all the great, all the glitchy, and all that fun stuff, but it really just has been a great opportunity to build some community within our program in our classroom. So I think
Thank you, ladies.
I go to Lisa. Did you want to talk a little bit about kind of your experience?
Yes, thank you. It's definitely been a year of learning for all of us. And for us, the big focus has been on maintaining high standards for the specialized instruction that we provide, both in person and remotely. And also supporting the families of the students that we work with, supporting during the hybrid learning, maybe providing specialized schedules for students that need them, or a motivational chart to help them get motivated to get their work done. And it's been a great experience to work together with the families. And then we were also able to provide support to our fully remote students that we're working with Greenfield or TECA and providing them with synchronous lessons or providing them with just making sure that we were there and working together with their team at those schools to make sure their accommodations and modifications were being put into place for them. The asynchronous learning, we also use, like Colleen, a lot of Lexia for our reading program, and it provided us with access to what the students were doing and individualized materials for the students to work on at home. And it was a fun platform for them to use to work at their own individual level and on the skills that they needed for themselves. And then we also provided synchronous lessons on Teams, and a typical reading lesson would start with a mini lesson about a particular phonics skill. We were able to read words, we were able to spell words, sometimes through the chat feature, or they would show a whiteboard, or they would write on paper and show us. And then we were fortunate to have several online resources where we could access leveled readers for our students and share a book together. I could share it on my screen and we could all read the book together. We even had plays that the students really loved where we'd read a story and then they'd each get a part and then we'd act out the play together. And then, you know, we also had some really wonderful discussions after reading books, just like we would have in person, but just a different platform. And the students were always smiling and really seemed to enjoy it. And I learned so much this year about what is out there with technology. So it was a wonderful experience in learning new things together with the students and working together with the families.
Thank you, ladies. Mrs. Parr, I almost skipped you. I could never do that. Let me go back to preschool. If you want to give an update on preschool.
Thanks, Corey. I thought I was getting a bye tonight. Very cool things to talk about that you guys are all mentioning. And when Corey asked us to participate in this, he talked about what are the accomplishments and what are the highlights. And I'm looking back to, as Colleen mentioned, back to the summer. Preschool was completely online in the summer. Related services from speech and language, OT and PT were all online. We were just learning. We didn't know much about COVID at that point, how contagious it was. I remember trying to get the staff comfortable with the technology all at the same time and wondering that we might be coming back first. So we made it through the summer and we arrived in our new building late August, which is absolutely gorgeous. And thank goodness we have more space because when we started in September, we were full in. And our programs ran as usual, with the exception of all of the health and safety protocols and trying to keep masks on 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds and trying to keep socially distanced with 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds and trying to keep sanitized with 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds. His touch, hug, kiss, drool, spit, bite was quite a challenge. So I heard a lot over the course of this year about we're building the plane while we're flying it. That's what it was like. And the great news about it is that we did it. And it has been absolutely amazing. The resiliency of these kids, first of all, of the staff, to be looking for full PPE equipment when we first started, gowns to masks to helmets to everything. We didn't know that much about COVID and what, how safe could we keep everybody? We got the plexiglass. We all worked together as a team. We shared ideas. We had husbands who crafted different stands to fit our preschool tables for our plexiglass that had the holes in the bottom to pass through with your hands. But our preschools were so little that their faces were in the holes. So that wasn't life support. So there was all kinds of things that went on with our staff in and of themselves that just getting over those hurdles of, oh my gosh, we're in a pandemic. Nobody's been through this before. Nobody knows what we're doing or how to do it. And gradually, when we got back into school, I think we started out with 9 families who opted for different reasons to stay remote. Those students, as you can see from Corey's, from the pictures up here, we have a little guy on a laptop, and that laptop was at circle time during regular classroom, in-class activities. And he had the materials and the activities that were happening at circle time, and the teacher would greet him and the other kids would greet him. So this little guy has not been to preschool. In your upper right-hand corner, he's not been to preschool yet, but everybody knows and loves him because he comes to school every day virtually. The other kids you see with their masks, and you can see in the bottom, the teacher doing the activity and sharing the book right in live time. The kids learned how to be socially distant. The kids learned how to wear their masks, even to our
our most needy kids who have so many different levels of, sensitivities and that kind of thing, really have learned just the resiliency of the kids. The other piece, having the new building and having new equipment and having laptops, we've been able to as well access all different kinds of platforms, be in contact with families much more often for check-ins. All of our therapies have been provided to all of our preschool students. OT, PT, and speech have collaborated, in the hallway on a laptop, in the classroom on the laptop, in person. And it has just been amazing to watch the kids make progress per usual, despite all of the challenges that come with just the youngest ages of kids, that they don't sit at desks and they don't socially distance and they don't keep their hands to themselves. So it was an amazing time of learning for everybody, and get all their needs met with all the supports that we had in place, and the teamwork between the staff in the preschool was amazing to watch. We have only 4 kids right now that are still doing remote. Everybody is back in.
Thank you,
So
Diana.
that's a good accomplishment.
Very much. Thank you. We're going to go on to the middle school. Mrs. Felper, do you want to start us off?
Sure. So hi, I'm Missy Felper, and I am one of the 7th grade special educators. So I think there's actually a lot of highlights to this year. I think right from the beginning of the year, where we had the extended professional development days, our entire special education department at the middle school, the special educators, the education assistants, the service providers, in collaboration with our general education teachers, really collaborated on a level that we hadn't seen in the past, just sharing tools, sharing strategies, sharing different technologies that we learned throughout the spring and the summer to really create a collaborative environment where we were giving the students everything that we had to offer. We started out the year really putting together those ISLPs that I know Corey will talk about a little bit later, to figure out, in the middle school, these kids, a vast majority of them were in those cohorts A and Bs, where we were only going to have them in the building 2 days, and then they had the 2 asynchronous learning days, remote learning days, and the synchronous remote learning days. So how were we going to give them all of their services when they were only in front of us 2 days a week, and really provide those services to the best of our ability? So we, right from the beginning of the year, we've been providing remote support services. It's been great. All the special educators, our education assistants have been amazing and so flexible, and really bringing themselves to a whole new level. It's a whole new job for them to be providing these services remotely. And it's been so beneficial for the students. We offer daily supports for them, where if they're asynchronous at home, they're able to log in to get those supports that they would traditionally be getting in the classroom, to really give those accommodations to them, whether it's just clarifying directions or needing a reteach of something or a read aloud on an assignment, that they're still able to get those supports even when they're working more independently at home, which has been really huge and just great to see the students be able to get that still. And on that note, even though we wish we could have had them in the building all year, the students have also just gained such a level of independence by working asynchronously. In the middle school, we're really looking for them to become more independent in a lot of those organizational skills and those study skills. And this is unfortunate that we're in a pandemic, but has really given that opportunity for a lot of our students. The students are utilizing checklists that we're putting out for them daily, and now they're being able to make their own checklist or modify the checklist to work best for them. We've provided individualized schedules for a lot of our students, and the students are able to go in now and identify what's working for me in this schedule, and can I independently change this to work a little bit better for me. Using a lot of the accessibility features, the immersive reader, dictation, the draw feature in OneNote is awesome on our devices because we can use the number 2 pencils. And the students are really starting to become more and more proficient with those skills. And it's things that we may not have worked on as much in a traditional year. So I think there really are just a lot of highlights that we're getting with that independence for our students. And just overall, I think we have gotten so many new tools in our toolkit that we wouldn't have gotten in a traditional year. And it's really taken us to dig for some of those resources that now we're going to use year after year because they just work so great with our students. So as crazy as the year it's been, and I hope we never have to do it again, I think that there really has been a lot that's come out of it for us as teachers and special educators, and for the students as well. It's really been a lot of highlights. When I was kind of sitting down, jotting down, all right, what are my highlights for this year? I couldn't believe how many highlights I was actually writing down, because it has been a hard year and a chaotic year. But there's been so many good things that have come out of it, and so many ways that we've been able to deliver the support to these students to really make progress and succeed in such an adverse year for them. And it's really been great, and it's been a true testament to the entire special education program. I'm very lucky to work with all of you guys, and then everyone at the Ahern that I'm kind of speaking on behalf of as well. It's really been a great year, and we're really lucky to have such a great team and great collaborators. With that said, I'll pass it over to one of my other colleagues, Erica.
Hi, I'm Erica McNamara. I definitely second everything that Missy said about our team and working together. This is my first year at the Ahern, and I definitely couldn't be more grateful for the staff that I have to work with, special educators and everybody else too. I was able to do a lot of collaboration with the general ed teachers that I work with, as well as the speech pathologist and OT. They come into my room weekly and work with the kids, and it's just been amazing to be able to collaborate in that way. Some of the other things that I think that has been great for my kids, because they're fifth graders, is I think the transition to middle school has always been really tough for fifth graders in general, and this model has been amazing. I had 2 parents email me at the beginning of the year how nervous their kids were for middle school and how they didn't know how they were going to do. And I think that because my kids have been able to come all 5 days, they've kind of been able to dip their toe into the general education setting and build confidence in themselves. And so when we go back full in person, I have no doubt that they're going to do amazing, because they build comfortability with myself and with the general ed teachers and with their peers. So that has been really great. Another thing that is a highlight is just the technology piece for myself and for the students. I think that, like Missy said about the independence, we would have never been expecting them to do so many things on their own. And because we're forced to, we're seeing them make a lot of progress and, show their true colors of things that maybe we wouldn't have given them the chance to do before. So I think that was really great. And what was the other thing? I think that some of my colleagues also said that the behavioral issues in the general ed setting, because the classroom sizes are small right now, they've seen such a decrease in it, and a lot of kids that needed fidgets before or needed a wobbly stool, they really don't need that anymore. And so it's given the special educators more time to give that one-to-one support and focus more on the instruction instead of the behavioral guidelines. So I think that's been really great too. And I can't say enough great stuff. I was also surprised at how many good things I could write down on my list. But I think it's great, and I'm so happy to be able to learn so much this year. But definitely can't wait till I don't have to do it again anymore.
Thank you, Erica. And high school, last but not least, our high school staff.
Okay, hi, I'm Pamela Anderson. I'm the department chair at the high school. And as you might have been seeing, everything my colleagues were saying, I was nodding my head, including what Diana Parr was saying, because we also at the high school level have to remind our students about social distancing and keeping their masks on and sanitizing and all that kind of fun stuff. So it doesn't matter how old they are. So not to repeat what everybody said, so I'll just kind of focus on some of the summer. We started in the summer as well. And after seeing the kids in the summer, I knew it was going to be okay, that we were going to get back and we were going to be okay. We have such a strong team at the high school, which I'm so proud of. And the summer really helped. So kind of talking about our PACE kids, Our PAVE students, our 18 to 22-year-old students, are still going out in the community. We're so proud of the fact that they were going to CVS 1 or 2 days a week, and CVS said, "Can you come more? The kids are great. They're so helpful. We love having them." So they're now working at CVS 5 days a week. We also have our PAVE students are working at the Ahern packing lunches. And again, we started off with 1 day with Mrs. Watts and the team down at the Ahern packing the lunches. And then we're doing about 125 lunches. And again, the kids were so respectful and so efficient that they said, "Can you come every day?" And so they did. And now they're going 5 days a week, and they're packing 465 lunches. And the beauty of it is that we've really been able to work with the students and remind them and let them know how much they can help their communities by just doing these small acts. And by doing this, they're helping the Foxborough community, and they're very proud of themselves for being able to do that. So those are our older kids. Are kind of thinking about our cohort A and cohort B kids. I know that Missy talked about this as well. We're trying to figure out how are we going to best service these kids on their non-cohort days. So we've done a couple of things. One, as we did in the spring, we have ACLAB, access to ACLAB every day from 7:30 to 2:30, cohort days or non-cohort days, and also on the remote days. We also have a core group of students, and we worked really hard over the summer with transportation administration to be able to bring our neediest kids in that we knew from the spring were really going to struggle kind of with the independent work. So they come in on their non-cohort days from 7:30 to 10:30. And I know Corey will share some of the numbers. So we've been able to do that. And again, if they don't come in on their non-cohort days, they have access to a special ed teacher and or assistant all day long. The other thing that we've done is when we have an assistant or a co-teacher in a classroom, on the non-cohort days, they log into the computer with the students that are at home for a daily check-in with them, making sure they understand what the assignment is, do they need any clarification, and they have their teams open the whole class so that they can jump on if the kids have a question. So we have that available to all the students. Our highest needs kids are in 4 days a week. And they're attending their special education classes. And I think that our special ed teachers feel really fortunate because we're really lucky. We've been able to have our kids in almost every day, and they love it. They love teaching the kids. They see them on a daily basis, and it's been really, really rewarding for both the teachers and the kids. And then with our highest need PAVE kids, they are in 5 days a week. But I'm really proud of them because even on their Synchronous Wednesday, when they're in the building, they log onto their laptops and they join their classes and they participate remotely, even though they're in the building, which is kind of great as well. The other thing I wanted to kind of talk about was because the kids have such a small amount of in-person learning for the most part, it's been very, very challenging with our reevaluations and with our initial evaluations. And we have had a lot of them. We've had a definite increase on initial evals, especially in the realm of social emotional wellness. So in order to minimize the amount of time that the kids would miss classes, we have them coming in on their non-cohort day for all of their testing. So it's really been a effort with both the parents and with transportation. And I have to say, I have one of my special ed teachers who took the transportation piece completely off my plate. So he manages all of that, whether kids are coming in 1 day or 2 days or for 3 weeks or 2 weeks or whatever. So God bless him for that. So all of our testing has been done on non-cohort days so they do not miss live instruction. And also with our groups, our social communication groups, our counseling, any of those services are also being done on, for the most part, on non-cohort days. Or if we have kids coming in for extra, they might do it in person on their extra days. So that's kind of how we've embraced all of that. So I think as a whole, we've really been able to provide an abundance of service. We have our liaisons. We developed a 3-week schedule for the students, and every 3 weeks, the liaisons will resend it home, particularly for the parents. The parents have had a very difficult time remembering, is my child in today? Are they not in? Is this the day they're coming in extra or not? So I think that's been a huge tool that's really benefited both the students and the parents. And we too are working towards independence, but right now we're really doing it more for the parents than we are for the kids. And if we forget, they're like, I didn't get my schedule. What's my schedule? When is my child coming in? So we've been able to do that as well. The other piece that we've had is a little bit of the virtual, which I'd really like to invite Mr. Davis. I'm trying to keep my talking minimal. People who know me know I could go on forever. So I'm going to hand over to Mr. Davis to talk a little bit about what we've been doing in the team program and for our virtual learners.
Thank you, Pam. First, speaking of the remote learning with Greenfield Commonwealth Virtual School and through Edgenuity, we were quickly thrown into it kind of seems like the theme of the year, as in writing the rule book as you go. And we were able to work with some great educators in Greenfield to come up with ways to incorporate the accommodations through the virtual school and the accommodations that we have on our IEPs in addition to our schedules with them. Now, the schedules with the synchronous and the asynchronous students needing to work in line with our Foxborough High School academic lab, counseling, and social skills group wasn't always matching up. So it was really nice that we were able to be online when we needed to, whether it was the special education teachers or our educational assistants, and using this technology piece to our benefit to be able to have more access to our students is actually, we've been very fortunate in that way. Currently in the team program, we have 3 students who are fully remote and 1 student who is in the process of transitioning. And in transitioning a student in one of our most vulnerable populations, they really have to take a lot into account. And we're currently slowly transitioning this student as they are spending their cohort days in the team program. They're still with the Greenfield curriculum and receiving their special education services at Foxborough High School. And they will continue that through the end of the term. And then they will transition fully into the Foxborough High School curriculum. And until then, if there's any discrepancies, any gaps in the curriculums between Greenfield and Foxborough, the teachers are coming down and introducing themselves. We are able to work together and collaborate to make sure that transition is smooth for them. As far as the team program goes, pardon me, the new styles that we have had to deal with through team are, so sorry. I'll just start over again. Thanks.
You're fine.
The new styles of communication and social norms that we are learning through the team program have obviously been shown through the rest of special education here tonight. And so each of our students has a daily correspondence, either in person or through virtual ACT Lab, in addition to their check-ins with their liaisons, academic support with our educational assistants, and access to our tutors at the high school. Our social emotional journaling, mini lessons, executive functioning instruction, and small targeted groups are administered both in person and online. And our fully remote Wednesdays consist of our entire ACT Labs logging in to participate in our weekly community meetings, which foster social and communication skills, perspective taking, empathic listening, and then our embedded counseling services through our social worker, Marie Foley, take place both organically and on a scheduled basis. Additionally, many of the team students have been asked to come in for portions of their non-cohort days, like Pam had mentioned earlier. And it's been very important to them and to us for them to maintain that structure that the team program offers. When we are in school full time, the students in team are able to come and go as they need to, and that hasn't changed as we are hybrid. Whether that means they're popping on to the computer to check in on a regular basis, sometimes multiple times throughout the day, or they're coming out of a class. The team program is an open door and a safe space for these students at this time.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Much appreciated. Before they are dismissed, do you guys have any questions for any of our service providers here? I know they covered a lot of information, but yeah, I wanted to give you the opportunity to ask your questions or comments.
Any questions?
I thought that was very thorough and great information. It was really great to hear all of that, because I think, you know, a lot of parents don't really get to see all the stuff that goes behind the scenes into what, you know, if their students are receiving those types of services, what they're receiving and how all the adjustments over the last year have gone. So that was very informative, so thank you.
Great, awesome.
Yeah, I would completely second what Michelle just said, and also wanted to thank all of the presenters for the positives that they put forth and all the silver linings we heard about. I had tears in my eyes while you guys were talking, because it's such a great perspective, and it's one that I think we really needed to hear from all of you, and it's a real testament to what you do and how you do it, and we're lucky to have you all working for Foxborough kids. Thank you.
Anyone else? Brent?
No, just sorry, microphone, not my strong suit. I loved hearing the perspective from all the faculty and staff, and so I can't thank you enough for being here. It shows the magnitude of the team effort that you've all been undertaking, and the collaborative, I guess, smoothing that you do between the different levels to ensure service is provided to our students. I appreciated Ms. Anderson's acknowledgement of what's been hard. And I'm curious, just to give you all space for a moment, because I did appreciate hearing the silver linings. I'd like to give you all space just to say, you know, what's been hard, you know, what particular inevitable blind spots that open up when we go through such a challenging environment like this do you look forward to seeing closed as we go back to, you know, more in-person learning?
Pam, ISLPs? Yeah.
I am so looking forward to not having to update those ISLPs. In my role in particular, you know, our schedules often are changing, and every time we have to change the schedule, of course, we have to update the ISLP. And I lamented that almost every time I had to do it. So I'll be looking forward to bidding those farewell. And you know, I think just looking forward to, you know, at times it was a bit frenetic in terms of who's coming and who's going. So having just that stability back, I think, you know, I'm not always a big fan of change. So having more stability, I think, will be vital for us all.
You have somebody behind you, Pam.
You want to say hi?
Awesome. Thank you all for joining us tonight.
Just, I just want to give one quick thank you. So first of all, I want to just thank you for all your enthusiasm and focus. It's very evident in your presentations and who you are as people. It's obvious, and that transmits to the efforts of the kids and their success. Some words that I heard you all say, you all talked about tools, multiple tools, access to tools, using tools. You also talked about creative access for the students, which is huge, and it's different in this condition. And I heard standards a lot from all of you. So I think the takeaway for all of us and for the parents watching is these are the base principles that we go through each and every day to support all needs. So I just want to thank you for touching on all those things. You all touched them in different ways and very effectively. So thank you all.
Have a great night.
Thank you.
Are you welcome to stay?
Thanks, everybody.
You're always welcome.
That's right.
Corey, go, please.
Yeah. Okay, so as kind of some of the, I'm sorry.
Brett.
I wasn't done. Sorry, I have some more questions.
I'm sorry, I didn't move.
That's okay. No, it's fine. I'm curious if, like, and if you're going to fold it into your follow-up, I appreciate hearing. At least in the various schools that I've touched upon, I've seen those three cohorts that we had in the beginning. You know, a substantial service, medium level, you know, up to 20 over 25%, and then 0 to 25%. Of the group that, at least, I wonder if you could speak to me a bit about the 0 to 25% group and how you feel that that's been going. The ones that we don't get to see as much, the ones that we have to depend more on for remote and hybrid.
Yeah, so that's part of my follow-up. So
then go for it then.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So going back into what we were mentioning earlier in regards to the ISLPs, as I refer to them, the individual student learning plans, and we talk about kind of a hybrid and remote service delivery, to your point, students that necessarily were not the highest need students.
Correct.
However, we're in a hybrid type of model, as well as, and so that goes hand in hand with kind of the flexibility of support based on our structure that I'll talk about. But the ISLPs, to give you kind of an idea what this looked like, my mission was to ensure that every family knew what services they were going to be provided, how was those services going to be provided, and who was going to provide those services. And that was all dictated by the ISLP. So we utilized the active IEPs of students, and we were advised to provide all services to students. So as you can imagine, special education cannot be delivered, or it's actually, well, it can be because we did it, but it's extremely difficult to provide special education in a hybrid model. And so these ISLPs really, and I have some pictures here, but they really outline the services that students were receiving and the collaboration and communication with families. The big piece of that is seeking family input, and because we also understand that their lives were also disrupted, so we were also working around their schedules and kind of what worked for them, as well as what they felt their son or daughter needed through special education, and when services can be provided, how are they going to be provided. So at the start of the year, over the summer, September 16th on our first day, every parent, I can confidently say, in this district knew what services were going to be provided, how they're going to be provided, and who was providing that, as well as a communication plan with those families, because our special education teachers really know families on a really intimate basis, and so this was tenfold, and so there was a communication plan in place on a regular basis with those families, as we have had some students who were in a hybrid model 2 days a week, say, or at the elementary level, the AM/PM session. Throughout the year, September, October, November, would sometimes struggle. And so those, because we've developed really strong structures, they talked about the learning labs. So each of our elementary schools have learning labs, and those are staffed by teachers and educational assistants. And so what was happening is the students would go to a learning lab at the second half of the day in the elementary level, and what they would receive is the specialized services. And so they weren't receiving those remotely or over the computer, of course. They were receiving them in person, and then also able to provide support around their classwork as well in this learning lab. And so each learning lab was set up in each of our buildings, as well as at the Ahern. At the high school level, we utilized more of the academic support labs that are already in existence, but remodeled those a little bit. So anyway, based on our structures, students that began to struggle were able to receive more time in person. And so what I can also say is at the start of the year, September 16th, we started with 5 days a week. There, to my knowledge, there hasn't been any other district in this area that have been able to bring in the most needy kids in 5 full days a week. And we were able to do that September 16th. Districts are now talking about bringing in the most significant needs students, right, 5 days before the transition to full in-person. And so I think we did a really nice job with that, but what we also did was, to Brent's point a little earlier, was, you know, the state outlined students with significant or complex needs. And what we were able to do via our model was open that door a little bit to students that necessarily do not fit that criteria, however, require a little bit more in-person instruction than what was being offered by the hybrid model. So we use a very, very individualized approach. So we've had students in 2 days, students in 3 days, students in 4 days, students in 4.5 days. I think the transportation department really got mad with me, but no, they actually, you know, to give a big shout out to the transportation department, we were able to do this because of them, right? So students require transportation, and so we're able to manage to get kids in 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, all based on their needs, all based on their IEPs, and all based on any evolving needs that were happening throughout this year. Cool. So I'll talk a little bit about that, and I know they mentioned special education evaluations, and I'll go further down my slide on that. But I will say the biggest piece of success for us was having a fully in-person ESY program. Again, not many districts around this area were offering that. And so we had our students who were out for 3 months, from March to June, be able to come to our schools in July with very different protocols and procedures and receive a really high-quality instruction. And we use that data to really drive our kind of work for reopening schools and special education. So going back to the criteria, so the state gave guidelines, general guidelines in their special education guidance of students who are complex and high needs. And so as you can imagine, myself as well, we prioritize all of our students in special education. It's really difficult to sit back and prioritize who should get more in-person learning than the next. They're all students with disabilities, right? And they're all students that require a really high level quality of service and need as much in-person instruction as possible. But given the health and safety, kind of regulations at that time, it became really difficult. And so what we needed to do is go back to the state guidance, develop our internal criteria via the state guidance, with it a little bit more of an open door for students to receive a little bit more in-person instruction. And so here is from the special education reopening plan, because there was so much that was involved in special education, from team meetings to services, to evaluations. What we've decided to do as a department was create a special education reopening plan that kind of guided all of our work. And that plan, components of it was included in the district plan, but that really drove what we needed to do district-wide in special education. And so what you see here, those are our students. It gives a very specific criteria as far as who would qualify for more in-person days via their IEPs. And of course, via our model that we've had, we were able to bring students more, in for more time throughout the year. And so this is kind of our setup for this. So I just want to kind of go over it very, very quickly. But the low need students, or students who are, low need, they, receive, minimal services, and they were able to receive their in-person or their special education services in person through their IEPs. And then the middle category that's what I was talking about, opening the door a little bit to having more students, provide a little bit more in-person instruction. And so that wasn't necessarily part of the state guidance. The highest level of need, that was our students in our specialized programming, where all of our students in our specialized programming had the absolute right to come in 5 days a week. Mm-hmm. And again, that was from September 16th to where we are now. So I don't want to go too much into the service delivery because it was kind of mentioned via our staff earlier, but at the top here, that is right from the actual guidance from the state, and what we had to provide for students is a regular and consistent schedule of supports and services. And so the state gave multiple examples of how you can provide that. And so what we've decided to do as a district is create our own individualized student learning plan and those ISLPs that was mentioned earlier. The reason why they're so happy to let them go is the scheduling piece of providing services. What I've realized is unbelievable in what they have to do because all of the services, exactly the time that they're going to be, was included in that. Usually they create their own schedules, but not necessarily how and where and who's going to provide those services. So this is also part of the special education reopening plan. And so what we needed to do was, as a result of the closure from March to June, we had a number, roughly 70 evaluations that were outstanding that were able to be conducted because we were in a closure. Mm-hmm. And so this, opening up this school year, we needed to prioritize testing for our students, students that had outstanding testing from the previous spring, as well as our team meetings that never, got to happen. Some of them were able to happen, but those students with initial evaluations and reevaluations, those meetings, weren't able to happen, not all of them from March to June. And so what our top priority was those students that were going through the initial eligibility process, because if those students were potentially going to qualify for special ed, we wanted to make sure at the start of the year we're able to get them in as much as possible and, and receive the services that they require. But what I did forget to mention is over the summer, we did do some summer assessments. And so we were able to, through the business office, was able to bring in some staff to provide summer assessments and evaluations. So those students that were going through the initial evaluation stage receive their initial evaluation testing in the summer. So at the start of the school year, they're able to have team meetings, determine if a student would qualify, and go from there. And so what was really nice about that is we had about 21 students that were going through the initial eligibility process. We were able to get those completed over the summer. So at the start of the school year, within the first month, we were able to determine if they were eligible or not for special education instead of waiting until the school year to start the testing. So that was a big piece. And what we also need to do is set a schedule for meeting priorities as well, because we had a number of meetings, like I said, and not just IEP-related meetings, but meetings with families, clinical meetings that we have monthly for some of our students. And so we need to really prioritize when those meetings were going to happen. So the ISLPs, just to give you a quick snapshot, this is kind of what it looked like. On the left here is my cover letter that all families received. On the right here is all the contact information for the service providers. And it really speaks to the purpose of this actual document. But where the work really came in is on the next slide here. And on the left is describing any differences of the student's IEP and how we're providing those services through the ISLPs. As well as number 4 there, question as an example, is our communication plan with our families and how we're going to provide regular communication with our families. And then on the right is our delivery of services. And that is exactly what I said before about when we're going to provide those services, who is going to provide those services, and how are they going to be provided. And so as you can see there, Monday through Friday schedule, it outlined exactly when those services were going to happen in any given week. And as you can imagine, things change over time. And so when things change, we need to go back and update the ISLPs to make sure families are informed. So these ISLPs at this point, some of them are 15, 16 pages long because of the changes in the amount of communication they are having with families. So it's a lengthy document, but we need to document what those services are and how students are receiving those services. Another big piece to what we did was conduct various family forums throughout the year. At the start was reviewing the special education reopening plan with our families. So a big shout out to Mike Weber and Foxboro Cable Access, who have been absolutely amazing and been able to do this work on the drop of a dime sometimes. It's okay, we need to have a family forum and look at his schedule and the town schedule, and it's really the work of Foxboro Cable Access to make sure and to ensure that we have communication and ongoing communication with our families. And so we've held many family forums from the start, and we had them at each level. So preschool had their own forums, elementary, and so that was an opportunity for myself as a director to have direct communication with families. And it was really informal format. There wasn't a presentation per se, but what it was the opportunity for families to ask their questions and state their concerns at that time. And if it was appropriate, I would provide a response to that. But it was really a good way to communicate and connect with families throughout the year. And so we've had, our next one is going to be right after April vacation. And then that would be to kind of look at how full in-person is learning going for some of our kids that were previously part of the hybrid learning half-days schedule. And then the next part is I just want to kind of give a quick snapshot of kind of our work outside of COVID and kind of what's in existence here now in our specialized programs, and then moving forward what my vision is for specialized programming at the district level throughout the district pre-K to 12, okay?
Thank you.
And so we have primarily 2 specialized programs district-wide, pre-K to 12. I consider our preschool, I didn't put it on here, but our preschool is a specialized program. But from K to 12, we have PAVE, Partnership for Academics and Vocational Excellence, and then our team program, which is our therapeutic learning program. And so these programs are in existence in the district and have been for quite a while, and we have various student needs within our programming. And so what happens more often than not in special education is when you create a program, the program's created, and we sometimes try to fit students into those programs. What you need to do, and what we need to do as a district, is look to be agile to those programs and base our programs around our student needs. So my next slide, I'll talk about that in a second, but we have students that require a different level of service and a different type of approach. And so that's what we're examining now, district-wide, through a small committee that I have with our special education administration, which is our team chairs and coordinators. And so what I'm proposing to do, moving forward starting in September, is take a look at our programs. And what we did was, is now we have, a little too quick, here we go. So from our paid program, which we have, no pun intended, but different cohorts of students meet basically around their student need, their cohorts. And so what we want to do is kind of break out that paid program, and this is all with existing staff that we have within in the district. And so we have our Developmental Learning Center, which is a program that's now located, it's not Developmental Learning Center, it's our paid program, one of 2 at the IGO. And so those students in that program require, as an example, communication devices, require really explicit style of teaching. And so those students are probably our highest need students in this district. And so to take a look at the Developmental Learning Center, and right now in our paid programs, we have really 2 cohorts of students. And so again, designing programs around student needs is what we're doing with the Developmental Learning Center. And then I'm not a fan of the name PAVE because it does include a vocational aspect. And when we do that at the elementary level, I don't think that's the most proper way to provide a name of a program after a vocational kind of experience at the elementary level. And so what we decided to as a team is what it truly is. It's a specialized team for educational progress. That's our goal. And so our goals within our names of our programs is what we're trying to do. And so this is our now STEP program, and it's going to be 2 tiers. It's going to be Step In and Step Out. So our Step In students require a little bit more self-contained type of services from the general education classrooms, but our Step Out program is more of our students that are more fully inclusive. So it'll be our first, hopefully, fully inclusive specialized program, and that's what we kind of want to do. And so those are our students that require a different level of service than necessarily the more needy or more students with more need, but what it does do is provide a more of inclusive experience for some of our students. And so we've broken it down to 2 tiers. So at the elementary next year, we're going to have 4 existing programs, and now we have 2. So we're making a kind of a quick shift, but a quick shift around the student needs that exist right now, because I think going into creating programs, you have to look at the students that are in front of you. And who are those students that are part of that program, and how do we best support their needs? And so every year, this is going to be something that we adjust our programs and our specialized approaches based on the students that we have in front of us. And that's something that we need to do as a district, and it's not often the case in special education in general. And then we have one of our teachers spoke tonight, Erica. She is our language-based program. It's at the middle school, and so that's the Language Independence for Navigating Curriculum. And so a lot of times districts like to name their programs after primary disabilities, so language-based programming. Instead, we're going with the Language Independence and Navigating Curriculum, again, going back to the goal of the program. And so there you see there a quick description of students that would require that level of service and that level of programming. And then, of course, we have our Therapeutic Environment for Academic Mission, our team program that will still exist. But our goal as a district moving forward will be to create some consistency among our programs, elementary to middle school to high school. And then just a quick snapshot of data. And so what you can see here is a pretty steady trend of increasing numbers in our special education population and percentages. And so some years in some buildings we do see a slight decrease, but as you can see overall, it's a pretty steady increase. And so I think working with Dr. Mello and her department and really collaborating through kind of a close, co-teaching inclusive practices, which I'll talk about in my next slide, but really working off the UDL, Universal Design for Learning, and ensuring that our classrooms are really inclusive, pro-inclusive, right? And so that's, work that I'm doing with Dr. Mello that will continue on next year, and we already began that work this year. So the big thing is really enhancing our capacity of our staff. And so as an example, like I just said, the Inclusive Practices Co-Teaching Teacher Leader Group, that's something that we're doing right now with Dr. Lisa Deeker, who's out of the University of Central Florida, who is considered truly the guru when it comes to co-teaching inclusive practices. And I've worked with her for the last 3 or 4 years. We worked in my previous district together, and we were a fully inclusive district, and so I know the work can be done, and that's what we're going to kind of strive for. So right now, during a pandemic, we have 25 teachers, so it's outside of the contract hours, and so this is after school. And so we've seen a real hunger for this, and so we have 25 teachers. Most are general education teachers, which is what I wanted, and to receive, for them to receive the, really a good amount of support from Lisa, and the work that we're doing there is really around just good inclusion, good co-teaching practices, and really good UDL. And so we're doing a group here, and then our CERTS master group. So this is a different approach to students on the autism spectrum. And so it's not your traditional ABA. What it is, it focuses on social communication and emotional regulation. And the goal is to enable our students to be a more effective communicator and more effectively manage their own emotions. And so it's a very different style approach. And so we're working with the founders of the CERTS model. And so that work has begun this year with a core group. And this is a core master group, as I call it. And it'll turn into the train the trainer model for next year. And really what it does is it aligns to our principles of inclusive education and to ensuring that those students receive those, the most inclusive practices as much as possible. And then last but not least, some of our services that we provide to students in our consultation services, we're contracted with other agencies for their specialties, and as an example is assistive technology. And so we contract for a lot of that consultation with outside providers, but what's better than bringing that service in-house? And so we have top-notch, very highly skilled, very knowledgeable staff. And so I have 2 speech pathologists right now. One was on with us tonight, who are going through some intensive training and courses. And they've already been skilled in assistive technology, but really boost that to a level that we can provide now the consultation services in-house than contracting out for that. So that's a service that we're bringing in-house, looking forward for next year. And then questions and answers, I hope.
Well, there. So there you go, everyone. You got it all. Well done. Thank you. Any questions?
I have a couple of comments, and then just, I guess, one question. We'll go with the comments first. So, I didn't speak earlier, but I am incredibly appreciative with all the information that you've shared tonight. It's certainly, for me personally, has pulled back a big curtain that I knew was, I knew a lot of stuff was happening behind that curtain, but I had no idea what it was. So thank you so much for preparing all of this, for having your colleagues present and talk about their experience. I think that is, part of the example that y'all set. With sharing the experience with the community around what it means to be a part of Foxborough Public Schools. So first, just your leadership, I'm really, really grateful for you, or to you, for you, somebody fixed the English there for me, for being here tonight and sharing all this with us. So that's the first thing. And please share my appreciation and gratitude with everybody. I'll see Thomas, I'm sure, sometime soon, because he and my wife are friends, but everybody else, and I guess we're friends too. I didn't mean to. I can't, I've been quiet for way too long. An hour of not me talking is hard. So that was one thing. Second thing is, I loved a lot of the innovation that you're talking about here, and perhaps some of those things were the seeds were planted either in your previous experience or are planted already here, and you're just picking up on that. But the evolution of the thinking and the evolution of the educational model that you're working through, I think is a wonderful asset to have as part of our school community. So that didn't end well, but I hope you get
I get it. Yep.
Thank you. Good. And then the last question I have for you is, and I guess it's kind of a setup question, is, do you feel like you have everything you need from us as a school committee, and then as representatives of our community, for you and your colleagues to be successful with our students? I mean, that's really the ultimate question, but do you have what you need to be successful?
Is this my time for ask for things?
Sure.
No, really, I do. At this time, I think that the support of all of you throughout this entire experience, the support of Dr. Bertos, Dr. Mello, Mr. Yukna, the entire administrative team, the entire building-based staff, the entire building administrators, we all had to kind of come together and work really hard at this. But what I will say is our needs are always evolving. And so when it comes to special education, my need can change next week. We could have a student that moves in that requires a different level of service or a different level of support. And so at this time, I can confidently say we have what we need. And I think in-house, looking at our structuring of our programs, our structuring of our staffing, that's something that we're doing internally that I think is going to pay dividends in the end. But as of right now, absolutely, I feel that I've been fully supported throughout this entire process.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Brent?
Related to, I like when you ask that question, Rob. No, because it's hard for folks to answer. It's also hard for folks to answer when on camera. It's hard for folks to answer when they're sitting with their boss. And I just want to acknowledge that. So thank you for that. I guess if projecting forward, and this is a dangerous business, and I know that your projection, that is, and your needs could change tomorrow, and we've seen it happen in this district. We have, and it's subject of many budget discussions. In fact, it carries budgetary implications. But if you could help us, because you are talking about laying the foundations for seeing the next version of SPED and services in this district, which is something you talked extensively about in your interview process last year, and being patient with it and being collaborative with it, and we've seen that throughout your presentation earlier and even now. A couple things I heard echoes of from your faculty and staff tonight, and a little bit you, is increasing need around social emotional support in learning. Are there other areas that maybe the district or maybe people at home should be expecting to look over the horizon and needing more support on moving forward? It's as an educator, it's no surprise to me that there's a lot of kids who need more social emotional support after this last year. Are there other areas that you see on the horizon for that?
For around social emotional?
I've been holding you to nothing. I'm just asking.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, absolutely. We have a lot of students that necessarily weren't on our radar before that require that social emotional support, that we are seeing that now. And so I think, as well as our service providers are really stretched with the number of services and kids they have in their caseload. So when it comes to social emotional learning, there's always more to be done with that. And there's always more work to be done with that. And so, but right now, I would say our kids are being really, really supportive. Really supported. But there's also time for growth in our colleagues, but growth in our staffing, because there is a need. There is a need there. As an example, not to go into too much of the data, but we have our middle school guidance department, which is one of the best guidance departments I've worked with, who provide a lot of social emotional support that is different from other districts where their guidance department is more worrying about classes and courses and credits at the high school level. And so having that at the middle school level, we're able to leverage some of our social emotional work, as well as I have an district coordinator who's really taken the lead on our mental health teams district-wide. And so she's providing a lot of mental health support with our mental health teams. And we have a number of outside providers that come in to us as well, consultants that kind of guide our work, and MTSS, and guide our work around what kids need social emotionally. And but of course, staffing is always of an issue. But right now, I would say that our kids are being fully serviced and supported.
Right on.
Can I just jump in to add to that? Next year, we're hoping to bring the responsive classroom up from the elementary to the middle school. There's a continuation of that program, and to sort of wrap around the social emotional supports that would be a little extra. They have things in place now at the middle school, and I know they have second step and they have a lot of other stuff. But having that formal program that would be a continuation from the elementary is a goal, and we're hoping to get training this summer and implement next year. Not finalized yet, but working on it.
I appreciate that. No, and then that's for all faculty. And related to that, one of the things that I enjoyed from meeting you early on, and I'm seeing it in the initiatives here, is this building capacity of all faculty, not just those who are in the Department of Special Ed. Through the co-teaching model, I'm impressed that you were able to move forward with that in this year in particular. Frankly shocked, but pleasantly impressed. With that, I guess if there are, as you work with more regular ed teachers in programs and look to meld those skills and increase the skills of everybody, are you seeing from this year, at least from your vantage point, which is different than regular ed classroom teacher, are you seeing greater need for in areas like specific math, language, reading, and things like that? Is that something you anticipate needing to support regular ed faculty on more moving forward?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Loaded question, good question.
I don't mean it to be loaded. I mean, it's just, you also you understand you're getting my perspective, seeing this go on at my own job every day.
I would say, so it comes down to, when it comes to inclusive practices,
sure.
Our special ed teachers do a really great job of that delivery of service. They're the experts. That's what I say. They're the experts of the delivery of that instruction and that service. Yeah. Whereas our classroom teachers and our grade level teachers and our content teachers are the experts in the curriculum.
Yeah.
And so I think reversing the roles, and this is what we're doing through the co-teaching model, is provide our special education teachers with more content PD, and that's with Dr. Mello, as well as now providing our classroom and content teachers with more specialized PD around special education.
Awesome.
And so that's kind of what we're doing there. And we are, it's tough because at the secondary level, and you know this, but content is on the forefront. And so at the elementary level, from the special education perspective, if you don't necessarily know the content, that's not the end all be all. At the high school level, when you're in a 10th grade or 11th grade calculus class and you're providing a co-teaching experience and you're not necessarily proficient in math, it's tough to enable that really true co-teaching partnership. And so I would say at all levels, I think we need to boost our content knowledge of our special education teachers, as well as boost the specialized delivery of instruction to our content classroom teachers.
Well, I support you in that endeavor. It takes years to develop those partnerships, and I, for one, say please stay the course, because it will.
Oh, it's going to happen.
Good.
Yeah.
It will take time.
Yeah,
it will take years, and I think that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I do. I think that's okay. And then the other thing, I just wanted a quick clarification on. I believe I understood how you're restructuring some of the programs. I'm just off on my numbers. You said, mentioned PAVE morphing into 4 programs. Did I hear that correctly? Like, because I understood DLC, step in, step out.
Yep. So right now we have at the elementary, we have 2 PAVE programs,
Okay.
2 different teachers. One of them was on with us tonight. And so what we're doing with that program is we're going to add another tier to that. And so the neediest population of that PAVE program is going to be now the Developmental Learning Center. And then the 2 other tiers of the PAVE program will split into step in and step out. So that's 3 programs right there. And one of those programs will more focus and be almost, I don't want to say it, but the feeder program for our middle school program. Sorry?
No, that makes sense. Okay,
Yeah.
that's what it was. That's what I had missed. And then the last one I have is not, I guess, it's not a question. It's more, and it's to everybody here. As a parent and as an educator, I've been dismayed in the last 2 weeks about the amount of, and I hear, it's how I hear the question of this year academically phrased at the outset is, are people behind? Are people behind? Are people behind? Are people behind? And as parents, that type of rhetoric, at least for me, preys upon my fears. And we're all in the same boat, man. And like, all kids have had a hard year, and you know, and I just didn't know if you had any advice for families on that,
Yeah, I
or
would say,
if anybody does.
Yeah, at least on my end, I would say the biggest piece of our success is keeping those communication lines open.
Okay.
You know, and not stopping the train before it starts. And so opening those lines of communication as far as, you know, there's a data piece to it too, and there's that collection piece and the process behind of our students behind. Because what I will say, what's really interesting about this is we're able to provide our services, special education-wise, through a synchronous and asynchronous model. And what we're seeing is our students are still making progress. Our students are making really good progress in the service delivery model. And so what we're saying is, well, okay, I think we're doing something right. And so it really brings us back to the original, you know, comment about, okay, what does our specialized services look like? And how are we providing these services as far as the amount of services that sometimes students are receiving? And so knowing that our students in a hybrid model, our most vulnerable students, are making progress in this time, I am confident that the work with Dr. Mello and I, and from the general education side, will still continue to make progress and still meet their educational goals, special education or not. But I think it's our work to look into next year, and I'll leave that to Dr. Mello, but kind of our work next year in the general education side to support all learners.
I appreciate
And I think just to your point about, we have a lot of data. We use Illuminate as our primary platform for assessment. It's not the only one, but there's a lot.
Yeah.
I know, it's a good name. And there's these pivot tables in there that show student growth. And when you hover on them, you can see who exactly is making the growth, who's exceeding the growth, and who do we need to target for intervention. So it's really allowed teachers in real time to be responsive to what we're seeing. And overall, our trends are, we are seeing the growth that we would expect to see. It's been actually a pleasant surprise. So I don't think the same type of overwhelming fear exists for the people who are actually looking at the data.
Right.
I think it's the fear of the unknown. And I know there was a lot of research after Hurricane Katrina that showed that those kids rebounded quite well. It's a different situation. But I think we're hopeful. And when you say that, you know, some of our most compromised students are growing, it does give us hope for where we'll be. That being said, we are taking a careful look at all of our data so that we can set everyone up for success as we start the next year. And that work's happening now, actually this week.
I appreciate that greatly, because I think that one particular report that I was glomming onto was, it's survey data, right? But an overwhelming number of parents are fearful that their kids are behind, but when asked to articulate the next level, they got nothing. Like, you know what I mean? And it comes down to the people who are actually looking at the data. And so I appreciate reporting out on that.
Bad language. It's not linear. There's
Thank you,
nothing
Rob.
to be behind about.
Right.
I'm sorry. I'll
No, and that's the point I wanted to bring out into the
progress
meeting.
And success. It's not behind. There's no behind, ever, in education.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No, that's why I brought it up.
Michelle, go ahead.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Mello, thank you for also, I know how much you're into data, and thanks for kind of bringing us back to that point, because it's really great to see from a parent perspective, from a member of the community, how well the Foxborough school system, how well, I can't say how impressed I am with your presentation, and just instead of standing still, because with everything that has gone on, that's kind of, human nature, kind of like hunker down, turtle yourself in, and just stay the course. You're going beyond that. And that's really impressive. And I think that from a parent's perspective, it's great to know that the leaders in the school are still moving forward. Yes. We're looking at data and, talking about being behind. It's more about how are kids moving forward? What is the path? Because the path's not the same path necessarily that it was before.
That's right.
And that's okay, and getting everybody comfortable with that. So thank you for the presentation. One of my questions was, do you foresee, we're seeing this trend, as you kind of pointed out, the trend in the population increasing. Do you see a trend kind of over the next year or so of more kind of additional requests or for testing and so forth, possibly from what happened this year or just in general?
I will say we're seeing that trend now. We're seeing an uptick in evaluations at all levels across the district. As an example, right now, I just talked to one of my high school psychologists, and she has about 40 evaluations right now on the docket. And so that's the amount of evaluation that some of our staff are doing as a result of outstanding evaluations that they had in the first part of the year, had to kind of focus their time on those outstanding evaluations. So we're going to do, at the end of this year, essentially a year and a half of evaluations in a year.
Right.
And so so we're seeing that trend now, and I think, like I said, the conversations that we're starting now and the conversations that will lead into the summer, into next school year,
right,
we're hoping to see kind of that dip in that, because what we're able to do through our wonderful DCAP that we have and through our wonderful already supportive services that we have in the district. So it's really just partnering together.
And I think in the coming year, you're going to hear more at this committee about the multi-tiered system of supports that we are
right,
progressing with. We got a little stunted because we closed, and we had some really great momentum as we were going in with our DCAP.
Right.
Those systems really mitigate the need to advance things to special education, because there's intervention and support that's very systematic. Now we have that, but we don't have it at the level yet that we want it to be, so we're working to improve that. So that's where we're in really close partnership and really examining the data to say, okay, where is the breakdown? So that work started too.
Yeah, and the work also started where, we will next year start an action plan for student services and special education. And this action plan will outline exactly what we're going to do professional development, training-wise, teaching and learning-wise, and everything that we do, whether it be paying for professional development, whether it be webinars or things that, staff in our goals that we're doing in those areas, teaching and learning, professional development, will be aligned to our action plan. We're going to go back to that, and that's something that will be, arranged by a committee that will kind of drive our work.
That goes back to that strategy for improvement. If you're hearing those that same terminology that's there, it's all embedded within that, with the MTSS, with the action plans. It all coalesces together.
Right.
And I just had one follow-up, is that, with everything that's happened, it's always good to be able to kind of see and look and say, there are some good things that have come out of this. And you all pointed out a lot of really good things. One of the things I kept hearing you again and again is communication with parents, back and forth, having that open line of communication. So I really hope, kind of going in the future, that some of the things that have come out with more parent participation in IEPs, all of that continues, because that's really something that is so crucial overall, not just for special ed, but overall having parents involved in the educational experience.
Yeah.
So.
It's a great point. As we're restructuring our programs, one of the biggest components that we're going to restructure is our parent input and our parent outreach, and what that looks like on a regular basis to receive parental input. And I think that a piece of it is really engaging the work of not only of our families, but engaging the work and how we plan and make meaningful conversations with families. It's not just on the phone, we're just going to call them. What it is, we can now set up a Zoom meeting, as an example. And so that's kind of what we're doing. And what we did as a district was create a team meeting guide for special education, because we're having virtual meetings, but staff are in person, and the paperwork and documentation that follows that is in person. So we need to have a clear-cut guide of that. And what I'm hoping for is DESE will still allow us next year to still have those virtual team meetings with families, because that's the route we're seeing. But we're also seeing great parent participation in these meetings.
Great. Tina, anything?
Thank you so much. I'm good. I don't have any questions. Just thank you for a great presentation. Thank you for a great year. You came in at the very start of this pandemic. I think it was just about a year ago that we welcomed you to the team. And even in a very challenging year, it seems like it's been a great one.
Give me the opportunity to know the district really well, really quickly.
Yeah. So, well, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
I do have a couple questions. So the ISLP, was that something you brought to the district for the purposes? They were talking about ISLPs. It actually, I thought I hear that this is going to go away, the ISLP, or not?
When we're fully in, and so the purpose of the ISLPs was to dictate how services were going to be provided that was different than the IEP that was originally agreed upon with the families. And so those students that stay fully remote, those will still stay in existence because we're still providing services in a different manner. But our students that are coming in full, we will cease and desist those learning plans and continue on with what we traditionally do in education.
So it's not a required mandated state learning plan?
The one that we have here, no.
It was what we created in order to be service and to cover all bases?
Correct,
Got
exactly.
It. And did you get any feedback from the special ed parents about the value of the ISLP and or the reopening plans that you put forward?
Yeah.
Positive, negative, or?
Yeah, I think what we've seen with our families is that the level of transparency that we've had with communicating our services and communicating just the needs of our students, I think has been paramount. But I think that the feedback that I've received, at least from parents on my end that are calling me or emailing me, is that they're receiving some really transparent information. They're really happy with everything that's happening. And again, that's not for every family. And of course, we're going to have, our struggles in certain areas. But I feel as a district, we've done a really great job of ensuring that those needs of students are communicated between families in the district. And I said from the beginning, when I originally met all of the families through presenting on kind of a town hall forum for special education, and our reopening plan was, if there's ever been a time to work closely and collaboratively with families, it's now. And so, on our families' end as well, they've done a lot of work and their lives have also been disrupted. And so on their end as well, facilitating some of that remote learning sessions, they provided a lot of work and support to us as well. And so I think as long as it's not just a one-way communication, there's two-way communication, it's ongoing, and parents aren't afraid to reach out. That's what we want.
Well,
Richard, can I just add there too? And I just really want to highlight what Corey has done with all of these virtual town hall meetings. He has had all levels, multiple nights, multiple times with groups. And that level of transparency that he's talking about, it really cannot be understated. He has been so accessible to parents and to the staff and working with them that it really is a testament to what he has done.
I was actually going to say something similar about, in the beginning, the attendance was really high, and we've seen it sort of drop off, and I think that speaks to the confidence that people have, and they don't have concerns, because you're creating this opportunity for them to come and share them, and we're not seeing. And when they do come, they're very complimentary and appreciative, so that's been very positive.
Yeah.
So thanks for that for the ISLP, because where it struck me was that I think it's a very deep level of communication, very thorough as well. So I do actually think the bar was set pretty high, which is excellent, which is a great resource, and our parents need to know we've set the bar high. Even if we might transition to a different communication model or a slightly different structure, the level is still set there where we expect it, right?
Absolutely.
That's where I took from it too. Co-teaching model. So I actually scheduled the co-teachers in Foxborough High School 10 years ago. So is there still co-teaching models right now with two staff members in the classroom?
There is.
And is this where we're going in that direction? And do we have the budget and everything to support that?
Yeah, that's a lot.
I know that's a loaded question, and it wasn't. But I do understand what co-teaching is, and I understand the value, and because I think we started it back in 2003.
Yeah. So around co-teaching, so just to kind of give you some context, so I came from a district that didn't have the strongest model of inclusion. And we called ourselves fully inclusive, but we weren't necessarily fully inclusive. And so our work with inclusive modeling with Dr. Deeker and our work with general education classroom teachers, because that's what we want to focus on, we were able to really transition our district, and other districts were coming to visit us and how we were doing it. And so I'm going to take that same model in Foxborough, and we are absolutely doing co-teaching at different levels and at different variations, I will say. And so what comes into co-teaching is co-planning, co-teaching, and co-assessing. And so what we have to do truly is take a look at our schedules and how we build our schedules district-wide in each building. And so what we should be doing, what we're going to hopefully transition to, is building our schedules around our inclusive classrooms, right? And those inclusion classrooms with general education teachers, let's build the support and let's build our building schedule around that. And we've already began to do that at the elementary level. And so the group that we have that's participating in that teacher leader group is at the elementary level. It's actually K to 6. So there's some of her and staff members also participating. Next year will be 7 through 12. And then we're going to have essentially 2 really core groups that will then kind of be the train-the-trainer model and kind of make sure that goes on all of our classrooms, all of our co-teaching and supportive classrooms.
And that takes some time and development and foundation, right? So
Correct.
I don't think anyone should walk out of here thinking there's going to be an inclusion model in months.
No, it'll take several years.
We're working in the direction, we're training, we're going that direction.
Yeah,
right?
it takes time. And inclusion, it's funny because inclusion is really easy to do poorly and really hard to do well, truly.
I would agree. I would agree.
And so if we're going to do something, we're going to do it right. And so it does take time. People have to be patient. But I think the biggest thing about coming to Foxborough is, I will say, our staff. I can't say enough about our related services, our special educators, and the amount of work and the skill set that they have in existence right now is top notch. I have not seen that before. And so we have the people, we have the skill sets. Now it's just the explicit training and intensity of that training and the follow through and the accountability of that training as well and that support. And so,
and I think just to Richard's point, there is an image of co-teaching where it's 2 teachers in the room all day long, and that's what it is, and that's where you'd get to the more staff. We are taking a more flexible approach where we would say, okay, we're going to co-teach in math. So the same special educator might be co-teaching with one math teacher for one period and then another math teacher for another period. Yep. So we're maximizing our staff and our delivery to students.
Yep, absolutely, yeah. And you can try to schedule it that way as well, too. Good.
Yeah.
Is there a pay program at the high school still?
There is, yep.
Okay,
There's 2 of them.
Make sure
Yep.
I want to ask
9 through
because
12 and then 18 to 22.
It was one of the greatest programs, and if Dave's still there, he's great.
I would take our 18 to 22 program against any other program in the state. We do a fantastic job in that program. It's very well known. They do a fantastic job, and like Mrs. Anderson alluded to today, or did say, they're still able to go in the community and have those jobs and still have that same type of support and that same type of drive and focus and goal setting for our students, and they're doing an absolutely incredible job.
Do we know the state average for special ed in a district?
Yeah, it's about 17.4, 17.5, so we're...
I thought it was in that 18%, so we're a little high on that high side. We've increased about 5% over about 6-7 years, so
Yep.
that's who we are, but we have to address what's before us.
But at the same time, going back to the data that we've looked at, the number of students, we've talked here at this table of those that have moved in that have been out of district, we've had a number of students that have moved in that have come in with IEPs as well. And we look very closely at, were they students with us? Were they students that moved in? We do a lot of data mining.
No, you're right. We've had a lot of, actually, good point. We've had a lot of students that moved into our district this year that require specialized programming from other communities. And so they come to us with an IEP, and some of those services are robust, and they receive a lot of services to fit that in our existing model because we have the structures in place and the people to do it. It's relatively easy to do.
But it should also be known that a comprehensive plan like this is the way to deal with it, too.
Yes.
Actually, to service the students, but also to create strength amongst those students, and you can change percentages with that well, too. So that's why we're doing this, so that, it's to serve, but also to develop, I guess I would say as well, too. Final question I had for you. You had mentioned every year you're trying to adjust to the students that we had, you'll adjust every year, so I think I understand that. But I don't think that means that this is going to be willy-nilly, or, today we're going to say one thing and tomorrow we're going to say another, right?
No,
but I think you're talking about assessing, understanding, and putting your thoughts to bear. On the situation, because if we have one student and we have that student for 7 years, right, we can't just take the program away or the program.
Correct.
Do I have that right?
You're absolutely 100% right. What we're doing is more aligning our programs around our existing student needs. And so, as an example, like I said, in our paid program, we have essentially 2 cohorts of students that I'm seeing now. And I had the opportunity to look at every single IEP in this district through the reopening process. And what I've been able to do is if you follow me on Twitter, I am all over classrooms and I am all over our students, and I know exactly at this point what our cohorts kind of exist within this district and some of their really intensive needs that they require. And so we've sat down as an administrative team, special education wise, and said, okay, I have in my office, actually, I have names of students on my board of who we're looking at for services, because when we look at our programs, we need to ensure that the programs that we're creating is around those students that we have in front of us. And so, like I said, we could have other students that move in, some students that leave, and so our student population may change and our student needs may evolve, but what we need to do is our programs is keep the same pace of adjusting our programs to keep the same pace as our students and their evolving needs. And so when one goes without the other, that's when you see a disconnect in programming. Not saying that it exists now, but what I'm saying is proactively thinking of our students as those needs evolve in anticipation is now, okay, let's restructure our programming a little bit to, one, provide them support with like peers and receive a really intensive level of support as, at the same time.
Well, I think and I appreciate that answer. I also appreciate the time and effort you're putting into visit and see everything K to 12, because that's critical in this thing, so that you're not just jumping quickly, you're not jumping willy-nilly, but you're assessing, seeing, envisioning where it is and what it really looks like and feels with. So that's critically important, so that we don't get into silos.
Right.
Exactly.
At any level or at any given pocket. So.
Exactly. Yep.
Anyone else? Well, we made it through. Corey, thank you so very much for your time and effort and for the depth of what you offered us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you,
And
Corey.
thank your staff as well again, too.
Oh, absolutely.
All the staff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Hard to believe he's only been here 8 months.
I know.
Feels
I
a lot
know.
longer.
You might want to stop sharing your screen before you go.
That's why she's the boss.
I could have been a best one. Walking around with computers. Oh, my gosh. Get everyone on TV dizzy.
Thank you, Corey.
Thank you, Corey.
Thank you, Corey. Thank you very much. So next on the agenda is the school committee vote to approve the Foxborough Public Schools Policy Manual. I had a question with this when we put it on the agenda, but I think I understand and wanted to explain it for everyone. There is an opportunity for this school committee to approve, kind of pro forma, the entire policy manual and how we exist in the foundation that we have. So this wasn't an item for an individual policy, but kind of that we have to approve our and accept our policy manual as a committee. So I don't know if there's any questions about that. So I guess I would accept the motion to approve the current policy manual for the Foxborough Public Schools.
So moved.
Brent moved, second. Michelle, second. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Oh,
Sorry, discussion.
Yes, please.
Just to be clear, something I think we had made clear before is that this vote doesn't prevent us from continuing with our regular policy review process and enfolding in new policies, a few of which are going to be on the docket soon. Correct?
That's absolutely correct. Actually, in the policy manual that we're approving has all the means to adjust policy quickly, right? Suspend policy, adjust policy. So we're approving the ability to continue approving.
Thank you.
Kind of in a very real way, right?
Wanted that set into the record.
So thank you.
Mr. Chair.
So we're all set, all discussion. We can actually do a hand vote in this one. All in favor, raise your hand, because we're all in person. That's 5-0. There we go. No roll call necessary. 5-0 vote. Thank you. Next is the fiscal 21 COVID-19 grant update. Mr. Yukna, thank you.
So the summary you received basically gives you the breakdown of the funding we've received so far. This actually goes back to starting in last April with the first CARES Act funding from the federal government. As you can see, we've got basically we received 5 separate grants through the federal government and state government at this point in time. Total just over $2.1 million. 44% of that basically has been spent on upgrading our technology throughout the district to have the one-to-one environment, and obviously a lot of changes in software availability and program stuff, as well as use of outside consultants to help us, get this done in the time frame we needed to get it done. The remote learning platforms that we've discussed, where some families have chosen to be 100% remote. We went the choice with following the state plan that was put out there and actually used their contract. So we had about 22% of the money going to support the funding for those Greenfield and TECA. For those families who so chose not to be part of the hybrid program. 8% of it went towards PPE and other protective equipment throughout the district. We spent about 16% of it on staff needs, and this really ranged all the way through. This was whether it was teachers, ed assistants, bus drivers, monitors to do our contact tracing. I think we did fairly well with this line, although obviously it's an expense that was not planned on our side. And then our final 10% went into instructional type materials, things like the additional furniture we needed to keep our spacing, the tents for the, be able to have the music program still operate on the outside, some minor HVAC, the study, and some additional changes we've made. And that basically breaks down the categories in the broad strokes as far as how we've spent this money. The last grant that we just received, or have actually just finished spending out, which was the ESSER 2 grant, which is $331,000, was the one I was talking to you about in the last couple of meetings that we were hoping to see come through. Since then, another grant under the ESSER program is coming through. And what our decision is, at least at this point, is that we're going to move that grant forward to next year and through the summer time frame, because there's a number of concerns we have throughout the district. Things like our summer program itself. We may have to do some additional supports in that program, and to make it a little bit more robust than we've had in the past. We do in our high school have a tutoring system, but we think we're going to have to support that a little heavier next year with additional staffing there, and also on the middle school and elementary school doing some of that as well. We're obviously hoping not to have the busing issues that we've had this year going into next year, but we do anticipate we will have some PPE issues that we're going to have to carry forward, and we're also going to have some cleaning protocols and staffing needs around that we're going to have to continue into next year. So again, when we did our budget discussions, I was very explicit to all of you that we were not including COVID-related funding in that budget request. It was our generic-based budget, and we truly felt and hoped that based on the federal government's support of what was going on in education, that we would have the resources coming to us, and as it stands now, we do believe we have those resources going into FY22. So I think at this point, we're fairly comfortable with that. But as you can see, everything has been very, very targeted from our perspective on all the funding that's come through. From the taxpayer's point of view, we're all going to end up paying for this. We know that over the years to come. But I think as far as Foxborough, that $1 million effectively to bring us to a one-to-one, district, we probably would have been looking to have taxpayers pay for that at some point in time. So, at least this first round has been accomplished through this grant level. And I would say even some of the we're being as specific as the reason we didn't get heavily into buying plexiglass dividers and stuff like that, and we bought furniture instead, was because we could replace older furniture with the new furniture when this was all over, and at least got two things out of one versus having a pile of plexiglass that we weren't sure what we were going to do with. So I think we've been very specific and very thoughtful in how we spent the money to basically extend not only what we could do for students, but what was the value to the taxpayer as well. And I'm comfortable that we've done the right things there. And again, I think I'm comfortable that the resources are going to be there for Dr. Burdos and the school committee as far as next year goes to cover the costs that we know we'll encounter. We're not going to be, September 1st is not going to be back to the normal September 1st. It's going to have other issues that we still have to deal with.
Mm-hmm. Any questions? Well, I certainly like the report that, you're kind of thinking forward that some of the COVID funds will be able to come out of the next budget cycle and everything. So I don't know if it's the Bill Yukon crystal ball or the magic 8-ball, but good planning on that one. That could be very fortunate for us. That's what you're thinking right now. Excellent.
And I think that's the critical piece, is that we did not build within the budget anything going forward that was COVID related. It was all based on current context and a needs-based budget. Mm-hmm. And so all of these additional needs will have to be funded through this ESSER 3 grant.
Mm-hmm. Good. Well, let's keep our fingers crossed that works for us as well too, right? Mm-hmm. Thank you. No questions from anyone? Great.
Thank you.
Other matters? Tina?
I had one, so I gave you guys an email that I received from Barbara Kelly. I wanted to go over something that I've been doing. Mr. Yukna asked me, I don't know, 2-3 years ago, Bill, to take on the task of attending these monthly webinars for the town's MIIA rewards program. I don't know, Bill, if you want to, can you speak to it a little bit, what it is? You can articulate it much better than I can.
So we're basically, in effect, we're in a self-insured pool from an insurance point of view with a number of other communities that are, pretty well run, and you get into it basically by having a community that is supportive to good policies and practices. The credit or rebate program that Maya has put together basically is designed to foster communities to continue that advancement in good practices. So some of it is, whether it's a school committee or public safety, taking different webinars to understand what some of the changes that are going on that, could face the town and could, create some liabilities to us. We do it on the facilities side as far as, we're in a program where we do freeze checks, we do, roof drainage, we do, constant surveying stuff, we get credit for that. There are what they call, what is it? I want to call it pickup truck, but it's not. It's basically little training programs for facilities and custodians to, again, whether it's back, issues, how not to, hurt your back on lifting and stuff like that. Some of it's on asbestos awareness and things like that. So their program is actually a very smart program, and in the end, it generates credits to the town to, again, reduce what our cost is. I think last year we got pretty close to $50,000 back to the town in all of these credit programs we did. And I will say the other side of it is we learn as we go of things that we could do better. We bought, part of the thing was they sponsored us buying infrared cameras so we could go around and look at buildings to see where we were having loss of heat and so on. So I think there's a lot of benefits to it, but it takes people doing it. So, we all take different seminars for different things that are in our fields that if they qualify, we get credit for that too. But the school committee also has a responsibility to this, and Tina's done a great job over the last number of years getting a lot of credit points in these webinars, which again are sponsored towards the what the school committee's responsibilities are. So it probably would be good if it could be spread around a little bit more than with one person.
So I haven't minded doing it. This is not a complaint on my part, but I am stepping away from my duties as a school committee member come May. So I have one more webinar scheduled for myself in April, which I will take. But as you see, we haven't completed our school board liability. I gave you the our credits. So I gave you the sheet that Barbara Kelly, who manages it for the town, emailed to me, and I'm hoping that maybe, you can kind of collaborate and figure out who can fill in the gaps so that we can, I think these things run all summer. If I remember correctly, I took them in May, June, July, August.
But this will basically, our credit for this year will end, I believe, right around April 15th.
Yeah.
And
so get in now.
They'll do the thing, and then they'll start up again.
I think that's how it works, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to bring it to your attention, and hopefully, we can.
And also, if there's any graduating seniors on this call who want to attend one of these webinars.
I'm not sure.
Tina, but thank you, Tina.
You do great.
There's 7 days left in March, and there's plenty in April, so.
Yeah?
If I can help motivate in any way, shape, or form.
I think that's called exit fee.
Yeah, anything I can do to help Tina.
Since I'm on a roll here, Richard, I would also mention that I have been doing, I took on Beverly's task of being the school committee representative to the recreation board, which has been fun this year, and they're a wonderful group of people. But when you all
Yeah, that's so
do
kind.
your school committee reorganization
Yeah.
in May, that is another thing that, hopefully you can decide who's going to play that part,
Got
so
it.
to speak.
Thank you for looking out for us.
So thank you. Is there a way that, like, further information on this? I would just suggest that it be sent to all the members of the school
Yeah,
committee,
I would
so then
reach
we
out.
can look it over.
Yeah, I would reach out to Barbara Kelly and,
Okay.
and see if, yeah.
Would someone
She
that
could
would help
do
us maybe? I think that would be allowed to be sent out from Janet, from Barbara through Janet to all of us.
Yeah.
And let's all take a look at it. I mean, certainly I've done enough webinars from my house in the past 12 months that another webinar is certainly possible. And my system is all set up for it.
Yeah, and that, maybe there's a way to kind of look at it where we can kind of parse it up.
I will say they're not interactive, so one can multitask while doing a webinar. I'm just going to put that out there. You can
did not.
listen
I
and
didn't
do
hear
another, if you need to.
I didn't hear that.
So,
But thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Don't check.
Thank you very much. Thanks for bringing it up.
my
Just
pleasure.
you are keeping a running list of all of the things that you've just been quietly doing.
Well, there is the school building committee, since we're going, since we're on task. I know it's late, but I will have my last school building committee meeting next month as well. So I don't know if you need another school committee member to take on that task through the end of the project, but we'll just put that on the list.
Okay.
Okay?
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. 37 days, Tina.
So much.
Anyone else?
Counting.
I guess you're planning here.
I have something, Richard.
Yes, please. And then Dr. Bordeaux said.
I just want to, for the people at home, and we will be sharing information on this, through our partnership with BICO, we are going to be offering a parent webinar on understanding the mental health implications of COVID for students and preparing for the return to normalcy, and that's in quotes. It's going to be hosted by Dr. Craig Murphy, who is nationally renowned. He represents the FEW Center, which is the Family and Educational Wellness Center at William and James College, and that will be April 8th at 7 p.m. So watch for information about that. It's a great opportunity. We're partnering with about 10 other districts to be able to bring this expert to our families.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Bordeaux.
I just had to save the date for you, the MASC Legislative Day that takes place in April. That is the day on the Hill. It will look differently, obviously, because of being virtual, but that date is April 19th at 9. So at this point, more information will come, but just wanted to put that out there for you through MASC.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I was just going to ask, Dr. Burrows, you had mentioned on the town halls for the middle and high school, have times been set for that?
6 o'clock for all of them.
6 o'clock, okay.
And we will record them as well and then post them on the website after, thanks to Foxborough Cable Access, so.
Great. Thank you so much.
Any other? All set, everyone? A motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Tina moved to adjourn, second by
Second.
Rob. All in favor? 5 hands in the air in the room. Thank you very much. Good night, everyone. Thank you for staying with us.